morning.
Good morning, sir. We can start.
Can you hear me, right, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. You can see my screen, right? Okay, so good morning, everyone. Apologies for a minute. So today is a day two, and this is the first session in the morning. And as we already understood that the first day it was AWS, and the rest of the days we are covering completely Microsoft practice.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Very low voice.
1 second. Better now, ma'am, or not? Better?
Okay, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So what we covered yesterday is AWS, and from today till the next 5 days, we will be covering completely Microsoft related product and services. So Azure is one of the part. Obviously, Microsoft has many services, not only just a cloud as a service, but we'll go into the history and we'll understand. So, but if you look at today, the day two, obviously we are going to cover the Azure fundamentals. There are two different labs, and in the evening there is a lab. Actually, this lab is also part of this lab. So, what I want to do today, and obviously we have many days, you will understand the console, you understand the ARM template, which is Azure Resource Manager, and in the evening I'll walk you through, because then we have 2 hours only focus on the portal as well as the labs. I'm not going to do any kind of theory this afternoon. So by the time I will be covering these 3 labs together, that will be one lab, but you will understand easily while creating, like how virtual network needs to be created first before we create any kind of virtual machine, etc. So, but it is very important if you really want to be an expert in the Microsoft practice. Then it's better you first understand some of the really basics about Microsoft. And what I'm going to do today is roughly touch everything. If you really want to design any application, if you really want to build major organization transforming from their on-prem infrastructure to the cloud infrastructure, how you basically start thinking and designing their new infrastructure into the cloud itself. And if you really listen for next couple of days and you really want to make a career also into this practice, you even can cover these 2 exams without looking any other material. But if you really need to listen, like, because majority of them, so what I'm going to cover for the next 4 days is like how that network fits to the customer requirements, how their security requirements basically match with what Microsoft is offer into the cloud as a security as a solution. If customer wants to create some fallback scenario, that if this goes wrong, automatically how it fallbacks, that is called disaster recovery, or sometimes they call BCP, which is a business continuity plan. And then obviously it is also important for you later to understand management and operation. That means how the monitoring is in place. So if something goes wrong, where you look at, because if the environment is so big, you cannot go every single link and just click and see whether the issue is being occurred. So that's the reason there's a monitoring tools which you can look at, and that will show you, hey, this is the subscription where there is a problem, and you can figure it out easily. And obviously, as I said, today also I will just walk you through and a small demo that will be done later. My point is, I'm going to cover complete design aspect for the next 4 days. There is nothing like just I'm gonna talk high level, and they will never understand. If somebody asks you, can you design my web-based application or backend application into the cloud, and you say, hey, I don't know how to do that, then I think the 4 or 5 days which we are going to cover, that will be sort of a waste. Just having this certification doesn't make sense if there is no knowledge. So let's bear with me for a couple. Walk you through. These are the important. If you really know this part in and out, or if you really want to offer a good cloud course within your campus, I think this knowledge will be more than enough. You don't need to do like expert level certification, because AZ104 is super critical exam that covers only design, but also it is really gives you a hands-on opportunity where you take the requirement or gather the requirement, and then you build application in such a way that it is cost effective, but also it is add availability and performance to the customer environment. Obviously, I before I go like Azure or governance, etc., probably you will say, hey, this is scary words. But if you listen carefully for next 2 hours, you will understand how easily you can build the network, what is identity means, how security you can align. So let me walk you through. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit again, just first 10 minutes, what we covered yesterday, very high level, so that you can rebuild your knowledge again. Then we'll touch roughly on compute, storage, networking. These are basic things. Like even if your mobile has a CPU, that means you need a bunch of CPUs there to process your data, which is a motherboard. But then in the compute, there is a virtual machine, which is EC2 instance, what we have learned yesterday in AWS. The container remains the same, only they called EKS in AWS, which is Elastic Containers System, versus they call AKS, Azure Container System. Obviously, the naming conventions are different, but behind the logic remains the same. Azure App Service is a platform as a service, which is same virtual machine, but the only thing virtual machine, which probably you might have heard yesterday, that when there is an infrastructure as a service, that means you let me go back a couple of slides so you understand again. When I say IaaS or PaaS, then you really need to, and in your mind, it should come that, hey, what I'm talking actually, because at the end of the day, those fundamentals are really critical for you to understand. Look at here, when I say IaaS or infrastructure as a service, that means you as a customer really need to focus on operating system, middleware, application data. When I say PaaS, that means you're only focusing on application and data. So if you look at the Microsoft stuff, which is, when I say machine, which is IaaS, that means you're managing operating system, middleware, application, and data. But when I say app, which is exactly the same, but the only difference between the app service is a PaaS service, that means everything is managed behind the scene by Microsoft. You only focus on your application. Generally, app service is used mainly for mobile based application, where you need scale, because there are millions of users wants to connect to that, like gaming, for example. Like kids, for example, nowadays everybody has their phones and they're just going to like Blockbuster or some other roadblocks kind of games. There you really need app service. Serverless compute, when I say serverless means You don't even manage anything about that server as a physical. You only focus on some scripts and you mitigate it. Obviously, I'll walk you through all those things later. I'm not going to deeper. I will start with whiteboard, walk you through about this part first, and then slowly we'll touch everything. And like I said, there are storage, database is also storage. There is a actually I'm also covering fundamental of data. So easy 100 where you will focus on Azure Data Engineer, where you will understand like how the Hadoop or data lake or data warehouse, how you can design if customer has a large environment, so especially in the manufacturing customers, how they are collecting IoT based data and putting into data like streaming data as well as real time data. We'll cover the networking. Networking is very important because, as I said, if you really want to talk, a source wants to talk to destination, or server one wants to talk to server two, it has to go through the network because they're not sitting next to each other. They're sitting from one end to another, and network will only help you to take that passage, take the message from one end to another. Security, as I said, security is a foundation layer. The only thing you have to always remember while designing is first take security into account. Customer always has a people say, hey, we really want cost is my issue, or agility, like application delivery faster is my priority. But actually, those priorities are very important, but those are the secondary priorities. The security is a first and foremost because if your organization, let's say your website, the organization means you're representing to the rest of the world as in a website. Let's say AC Patil College of Engineering, people just go into the website and start understanding what is the organization, what kind of courses are they offering, what level are they. It's a grade one, grade two before I basically submit my application to that college. People look at, but if that just for example, if the website is not secure, or if there is a payment needs to be done over that website is not secure, then the brand itself is not secure because brand nobody can trust on the brand. Just an example. So it is very important that you apply all the security, including access to the users. Like if it is a very critical data about that department, the HOD should have access first, and HOD should assign some different level of access to other professors or delegates so that they cannot break that particular department or particular data. So we'll walk you through. Obviously, compliance, because whatever you do, security and compliance go hand in hand, because whenever and whichever small design you want to do, as I said, GDPR, data protection. If there is a bank, they call PCI compliance. PCI means payment card industry, because bank offers credit card, debit card. So the cards has some compliance, right? And as a Amazon as a web services list or a Flipkart, for example, if you buy something on a Flipkart, you insert your credit card details, right? Even if let's assume that Microsoft or Azure, when you are creating free tier account, you put your credit card department, sorry, credit card information. Now that information of your credit card should be secured by Microsoft or secured by Flipkart, because your anyone gets the credit card details, they can purchase anything and you have to pay unnecessarily. But that means it is a duty of Flipkart and Amazon. Let's say if you're buying from Amazon, your credit card detail needs to be secured. So the compliance is very important. And if you have health, they call HIPAA. There are so many compliance which we will also walk you through. And lastly, you also need to understand if you are offering, if you design an application, you have to support that application, because customers are going to the flipkart.com any minute, maybe the midnight, daytime, or if before jumping into the flight, they can purchase something and ask delivered to their loved ones because there is a birthday of sister or daughter, whatever they purchase, and they want to surprise. That means the availability of the application is very critical. But that means that application should be supported by either the in-house party or by the provider, maybe Microsoft as a provider. Then you need to take the support into account. There are support plans, free tier, basic, professional. I will walk you through so you can understand. If you really want to run a big organization, your support should be there forever. Even if there are vacation times, somebody there as a backup or on call, who's an expert to know about how I can support if there is some issues happen, if there's any issues in terms of priorities. Because if it's super critical, they call priority one incidents versus priority four if it is small incidents, which can be negligible and can be fixed within a couple of hours. So those are the things we'll cover. I'm whatever experience I'm sharing with you is my full experience, which I'm doing day in day out with my customers. And this is a privilege for you also to, if you listen carefully about this concept and this couple of technologies, and if you roll out yourself, I'm sure you will give good knowledge to your students because their fundamental will be cleared before they start working in a professional life, and they can basically build so many applications based on their scripting knowledge. And instead of touching to the portal manually, they can create every single resource within Azure via the script only, whether it is ARM or maybe already there are templates on the GitHubs, and those GitHubs templates they can just pull and just build that infrastructure by modifying some of the parameters or customizing some of the parameters. So without further ado, I'll basically walk you through. I'm not going to the tools of Azure Service. This will be done later. But let me first go back to the portal. Obviously, I have the Azure portal. I will walk you through later. But first, you really need to understand the basic which we have learned yesterday. I'll basically walk you through very quickly so that you will be back again on the same page, and from onwards you will build with me like how the Azure is very simple and effective. I'm not basically saying the AWS is bad or GCP is bad. Everybody has their pros and cons, including Microsoft. But Microsoft history, if you look at, Microsoft started the business in 1975. If you look at the slide itself, that's the reason I really want to walk you through journey later. They started their Microsoft, Bill Gates basically, and some of the other folks along with, they started Microsoft, and their logos, if you look at over the period of time, has changed enormously. So when they came in 1975, obviously their motto was to bring the operating system to the end users. As I said, there was a personal computer which was running with DDoS, and they want to bring a flavor of Windows where it should be. Their motto is always motto being like how I can make any kind of application which any blind person can understand. That means they want to make it user friendly, right? And that is with the motto of making it user friendly. Microsoft basically started the operating system, OS. So Windows, for example. So why I'm telling this, you will understand in a couple of minutes. So because DOS was not easy. Not everyone can remember the commands like cd dot dot or cd, and then you change some folder structure, you add some files in it. But then again, pulling the file over the network is a challenge because your network is not built in that way where you can put everything into the same domain. So there are a couple of issues Microsoft has tackled in the past, and those issues become the new innovation, new um, patent from Microsoft in 1975. And you can imagine there are n number of versions Microsoft came with, like Windows XP, Windows, and now Windows 11, for example, is really more in production. But so many versions came, like Windows 2000, etc., etc. And why Microsoft is now more successful than AWS as of today, and why Satya Nadella has made Microsoft a trillion company, um, which is more than entire basically Amazon itself. I'm not talking about AWS, the entire Microsoft, Amazon, because Satya has only vision. Even Satya, before getting as a CEO as a position, he challenged Bill Gates and the previous CEO Steve Ballmer, saying that hey, we are now only a operating system company, plus we are offering some of the servers, and those servers, physical servers, we only giving operating system, and there are no application, Microsoft based applications sitting on top of that operating system. And tomorrow, what we as a company need to transition ourselves is we need to allow customer to build their own data center with complete Microsoft stack. That means if they buy a rack, all the server sitting into the stack should be Microsoft product, not the mix and match product. Then he also proposed that, hey, if you give me $10 billion, then I will build a couple of cloud-based data centers, and then customer, instead of buying their racks, hosting their infrastructure, they will start hosting in Microsoft because they already trust over the last 30, 40 years, right? We are already building a lot of applications, a lot of use cases with Microsoft. So customer trusts Microsoft as a brand. And I'm sure when I make this innovation happen, cloud as a service, customer will want to walk us with that journey. It was, and there is a video you can listen anytime when Satya, and if I find the link later, I will share with you. Steve Ballmer was not ready to invest 10 billion because 10 billion is a lot of money. 6 point, so like 6,500 crore in rupees is 1 billion multiplied by 10. You can imagine how much investment they have to make to build the data centers. But Bill Gates had some courage because Satya has spent almost 22 years by the time. And Bill Gates knew that Satya is an historic guy, but also a guy who every time he stepped into like a director, vice president, president, he had made enormous growth into the business. He added a lot of customers in different verticals. And when I say vertical means a manufacturing vertical, a retail vertical, a banking, we call BFSI, which is banking, financial, service industry, including insurance. So all these players, Satya brought it actually. And with that trust and with that gut feelings challenging to the CEO level, Satya has been basically named as the CEO of a company. And if you look at from the Satya came on board, Microsoft is super, not only the valuable company, but also the interesting company for a customer. And if you look at, there is a churn rate in management, we call churn rate. That means CHURN, number of disconnect. So a lot of customers are disconnected from other environment, AWS, and moving to the Microsoft. A lot of customers are taking themselves from Oracle Cloud to the Microsoft. A lot of customers are phasing out from Google Cloud provider to Microsoft. It's not because I'm marketing Microsoft, but the fundamental is if you as a customer has on-prem as a data center where you have 40% of your servers already from the Microsoft, and there is a AWS here and there is a let's say Azure here, and you're migrating those servers to the cloud. This is Microsoft Azure and this is AWS, and you already have the investment where you have the operating system which you purchase for 3 to 5 years. Let's say you purchase in 2022 and it is valid for 3 years. Let's assume that 2025. And now this year, which is 24, we still have 24 and 25, 2 years. You can reuse that operating system. It is very easy for you to move to the Azure than AWS, because AWS, you still have to purchase the operating system versus Microsoft say, you know what, you already have the licenses valid for 2 years. Why would you buy additional operating system from Azure itself? You can reuse. And again, as I said, there is a concept which I mentioned as a pricing. You see, pricing advisor calculator, TCO calculator. That is where we advise to the customer that do not buy the additional operating system. You already have it. You reuse it for next 2 years. That is where we'll help customer to save 30 to 40% of the cost for next 2 years. And you can imagine the CFO, chief financial officer, who's investing and allocating some budget every year, he will be super happy because their next 2 years, 30 to 40%, which is couple of millions, will be already saved by Microsoft or saved by a company like us, which is Microsoft company, right? We are advising to the customer day in day out, and this is the reason Microsoft is more successful. Now this is a bit of history, and which is very important to understand why um, where Microsoft started, and why my customers are signing up with Microsoft. And it's easy for us also, because for the first and foremost question we always ask, like, how much percentage of infrastructure you already have it with you, the Microsoft infrastructure. If a customer says, I have 50% application running based on Microsoft, my job is easy to go and introduce Azure and some SaaS based solution, etc., etc. Because I just have to, first and foremost, I have to help them to transform their 50% application to the cloud, and then make their technology folks more Azure savvy than AWS savvy. Savvy in the sense, make them expert, um, make them like the guru actually. Once they are guru and they love the platform, the rest of the 50% infrastructure from other providers, they will automatically transform to the Azure. Very simple job. And that is the reason you have to think like, hey, even today, if you really want to offer which cloud services, like AWS versus Azure versus GCP or Oracle, which cloud provider platform you want to offer into your college also, like cloud services, because you are an autonomous organization and you really want to offer that course, cloud, maybe Azure or AWS, you need to think like which one you can offer. And you make them expert from the day one, not mixing and matching, because you might have learned yesterday, AWS is not easy when you configure a few things. You really need to know the bits and pieces here. But if you later walk you through some of the things in Azure, it's pretty simple. And if you look at, if I want to create even a virtual machine here, you just click it and then you walk you through. You see there are a couple of tabs. Like, you first create basics, you attach a disk, you attach a network, you attach a management, whether identity or AD. There's a monitoring which you need to, which if you really want to check health check, yes or no. If you want some boot diagnostic to the disk, if you want some advanced services, like you can customize data script, add script, etc. It's easy. You don't need to look here and there, where is the my region, and then you go multiple tabs. This is simplified portal actually, where any as I said, any blind person can easily configure if he knows the basic. Now let me walk you through what we have learned yesterday. So what we have learned yesterday is about cloud, right? So first we learned also the basic, like the data center. The so first let me make a small use case. Let's assume that um, AC Patil College is a customer. Sorry, so AC Patil College is my customer, and then if AC Patil College says to me, Amar, I really want to build hybrid architecture. Currently, we have our own data center. That means the college buildings, they have a couple of racks and some of the servers, maybe the application server, maybe database server, etc. And they want to transition themselves to the cloud. maybe Azure Cloud, just for example. Now the subject is Azure for next 4 days, so I'm taking Azure. I'm not saying AWS is bad or others are bad. Everybody is good in their terms, but it's a customer choice which one they should go to. So I'm not, even if I work for Microsoft company, I don't want to say that the others are bad. That will be the wrong message from me. Everybody is good in terms of their own capacity. It's a customer choice at the end of the day, because how much infrastructure they already have with that Microsoft, or if not, better to move to AWS. But if you already have the, as I said, 50% Microsoft, from the cost perspective, it's a good choice to move. Okay, so now what I'm gonna talk is like, because they AC Patel College already have, as I said, application database or maybe web application, all are in on their own premise. And then let's assume that start with moving web application to the cloud and application server into the cloud and keep the database on-prem. So these two will be moved to the cloud. Now, if you look at this is on-prem, which is on their premise. On-prem means on their customer premise, and this in the cloud. And when I say on-prem is nothing but a private cloud. Your own cloud is a concept called private cloud. Now, that means you own everything. You own the rack. First of all, you own the place where maybe second floor, or if you're building a third floor, wherever it is a safe place to place. Then the rack is yours, the server is yours. Even the person who's managing the infrastructure is yours. He may be IT guy or help desk guy who's coming and fixing your computers and putting every computer into acpatil.com domain. Make sure that you are on the same domain so that file share can happen, etc., etc. So all this owned by you as a customer. That's the reason it is called a private cloud, which is your on premise. And the second thing is a public cloud. A public cloud where maybe is Azure, AWS, any other cloud, where cloud services provider offer bunch of services like web application you can put on virtual machine, or you can take app service, which is a PaaS service, and this is IaaS service. Because I already have the operating system and I want to take the operating system back here again. That's the reason I want to choose first as the infrastructure service. So this is nothing but a hybrid cloud, because I am using on-prem plus public, and that is become hybrid. So there are three models I just covered. So private cloud, public cloud, which is completely into the Microsoft, and hybrid cloud because you're using combination two. One server is on-prem, which is the equation for your journey, and that will be become hybrid cloud. Obviously, multi-cloud is another concept, but if you're using, let's say, GCP cloud for your machine learning application, because Google, when they started their journey, they 20 years back they were using IoT, and because Google Maps, if you look at, I think 2005 Google Map came in, almost roughly 20 years Google Map is in place. So IoT was there, AI was there. Um, Machine learning was there, container was there, because Microsoft GCP only brought the concept of container. So these terms which we are saying, hey, this is a new innovation, it was already there by GCP for 20 years. There's nothing new actually. Because if you look at Google Maps, has all the intelligence what I'm talking here. When you go left, it will say go right, because that is where your destination is. So they have had our, because they were collecting data, the whatever the data you're putting as a source to destination, based on the data they calculate, the algorithm runs and it calculates what is the shortest path. So those things were there already. And if your combination of hybrid and another cloud, which is two clouds, which is called multi-cloud, two or more is a multi-cloud. So I have covered all the models. That is what we discussed yesterday. Now, if you look at the types, we also covered. right? Like types. As I said, infrastructure as a service, which where you manage operating system, middleware, application, and data. Because why you're doing this? Because your operating system cost is already there. You have the same operating system you have first use for next 2 years, and that is first and foremost. Whenever you design any or taking any customer from transforming from on-prem to the cloud, my always it's not because Microsoft benefit with this, customer benefit more actually, because two reasons. Two reasons. What first is cost, of course, but cost is secondary part because CFO. But important, your organization. Organization means your engineers, your architects, who's working day in and day out of the architecture and designing, requirement gathering, etc. And then the engineers are building it. Maybe DevOps engineer as of today, they are used to your on-prem environment, but they are not used to cloud environment. How you make their journey seamless by having first knowledge into the cloud, get them comfortable about cloud journey. When they are comfortable, then easily you can move yourself to the PaaS, and then by the time your 2 years of operating system will come into renewal, so you say, I don't want to renew the operating system, I want to move to PaaS, where I only focus not only on operating system or middleware, I only focus on my core business. My core business as a AC Patel College is offering education to the students. My core business is not offering mobile phones or offering something. My core business as a college is giving education. The students come for 4 years degree, 3 years degree, and we should make their journey seamless by adding practical knowledge, not the theoretical knowledge. Because theoretical people can go to the website and they can learn, but practical knowledge is very important. Because tomorrow, when they go to the professional career, like working for TCS, from the day one, they know, hey, I know the cloud. I can tomorrow start working, building the application. In that kind of confidence, if you build, that's the reason the organization like Stanford and MIT and even some of the IITs, for example, their student is become an entrepreneur from the day one because they start building that kind of knowledge from the day one. We have to create those kind of organizations from the day one. So we have to offer a practical approach. The third thing is, as I said, software as a service. The software as a service, what we do, we even take the application out. In the past, we have taken operating system out, middleware out, and in the SaaS, we also allow customer not to even focus on application and data because that application is my own application. Where customers or consumers, when I say consumers, mean B2C, and the customers can be B2C and B2B. B2B means business to consumers, that means end user, you and me. If I'm buying the Netflix subscription, that is me individual to me. When a corporate offering another corporate, like TCS offering to big customers who's another corporate, that is called B2B services. Because TCS is not having any product, right? Just an example. TCS is just a service company. Microsoft has a product. Amazon has a product. So they're offering product to end users, maybe and to the corporates. But TCS, Infosys, Wipro, they don't have any product. They only use the product, the existing company product, which they already have knowledge, and they offer to the consumers. Now, you understand even the platform as a service, the types, or we call it not type, but service models. The service models, because this is the service, right? At the end of the day, this is the service. That's the reason it's service model. And the service model is very important before you start migrating or before you start designing any sort of application. Now, we have covered the models like hybrid, private, public. Then we have covered service models, which we discussed yesterday. I'm repeating because before we start building for next 1 hour Azure, it is very important your knowledge should be up to date, or else you might have forgot, hey, what Amar has talked yesterday on AWS. And today, if I have to know about what is cloud computing and why it is used, what are the benefits, you might forget. So that's the reason I'm repeating very quickly. If you look at the benefits, very important of the cloud, what we covered yesterday is cloud is a model built by four companies, right? Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, GCP is Google Cloud Platform, OCI, Oracle Cloud Platform, etc. That means they build data centers for you. You now they want to get yourself out of from your data center because you are not good at managing the data center. Plus, you are buying and you are not utilizing even 20 to 30% of the product and services which you already have in your data center. That means they 80% of the infrastructure idle, and you unnecessarily pay for that cost. So what are the benefits Microsoft or any other cloud provider is offering? Is there help? Any question in between? I forgot to ask that actually. If not, let me continue. So what the benefit my cloud providers are offering is they are creating high available infrastructure. What is highly available means there are regions we went through yesterday, the regions where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say US, Europe, Asia Pac. And if you want to make yourself even globally available, you can make this as a primary and secondary. Maybe this primary and secondary for Europe, and maybe APAC, you make this primary and secondary. So basically, even if the region is out of order by any DDoS attack or any sort of, you still have your infrastructure available. So what cloud providers made is everything is highly available. They made you flexible choices actually, because like I said, you can take virtual machine, you can take app service, that is infrastructure service or platform. That means they make you very flexible choices for you to go and choose any sort of product. You can dynamically scale. If you look at scale means you take the Netflix application in one region, you copy and paste the same application. So scaling and expanding is much easier, right? You don't need to worry at all like, hey, I need to buy server, I need to procure and then configure and then install. That takes hours. You just copy the same deployment, and now we call DevOps. I will walk you through at the end of the day what is DevOps and how that DevOps look like actually. And there are pipelines. The concept called pipelines will help you to copy exact the same deployment and roll out to other regions very easily. And within a couple of hours, your Netflix is available all over the world. So that means dynamic scaling plus elasticity. Elasticity means, as we understood yesterday with auto scaling group, if I have two server like mean, max, and desire, I keep minimum 1, maximum 3, desire 2. That means in maximum I can go 3, but desired I want 2. That means I'm keeping 2. So if I manually shut one server, it automatically adds additional server to keep the desired state of 2 minimum servers there. That is elasticity. You don't need to manually add any servers. That configuration will take care of itself if you have properly configured your settings. Fault tolerant. That means the availability zones, there are a couple of data centers. Their fault tolerance means if there are some outages, it automatically recognizes that I should move my user who's coming. For example, Amar as a user going to AC Patil College website, and let's say there are two data center, but Amar is coming and going to data center 1 and data center 2. If this data center is unavailable, there is a smart intelligence we configure that Amar should not notice whether the data center is unavailable. he still get access to another data center but the same website because I have configured my auto scaling as well as redundancy based on the availability zones. That is a fault tolerance. That means they offer lots of benefits out of that fault and disaster recovery, which is the same like if one fails, you automatically recover. Security, important parameter. I allow you to configure a security in such a way that my user who's coming, first of all, if this is a cloud, me as a user, and this is an application, I want to get access to that application. First, I need to be added into the system called Active Directory, but now they change name to the Intra ID. I will walk you through later, Intra ID. Well, that means I first need to register myself into the Intra ID as a user. So there is a concept like user should be part of the group, and group has a permission to access some applications, right? An application can be development application, production application, etc. And there I will be having either read only access or read write access. The read only access is a reader access, read write access is called contributor access. So there I first defined that Amar should have access. If he is a legitimate user, yes, he should have access, either read only or read write access, because he also going to change some configuration. That means he's going to write something there. So that means there is a security on user level. Even Netflix, if you really want to, first what you do, you first type your username and password. Once that password has been authenticated, then only you basically allow to go and watch any sort of movies or series based on your package what you purchased. If there is additional movie which is new movie and they said, hey, you can't watch this because that you need to pay separately $4 or $5, then of course you have to pay that extra because your package might be different. Cost, as I said, cost is another additional benefit. I already told, like they help you to transition your on-prem infrastructure to the cloud, because the first 30% to 40% of investment for next 2 years you can save already into Azure. So reduce cost is another additional benefits. Cloud is very how to say that if you have your own data center, if you do not have high end network like 10 gigabit of network or 100 gigabyte of network, then if let's assume that Amar is transferring a file to from Netherlands to Mumbai, and if this network is just 100 Mbps network, and I'm sending let's say 2 GB of my file, what happens that 2 GB file will be broken into multiple parts, like 100 MB, 100 MB, 100 MB, up to it may become two. That means it fragment the packet, and then it will take ages to reach to that destination, or maybe in between over the network, because you can imagine there are so many let's say hops in between that will drop your package. So there is no guarantee that the packet will reach from source to destination. So how you create a bigger pipe of let's say 10 GB or 100 GB where 2 GBs can be easily transferred without any fragmenting packet, that is called the low latency application. And if you look at, we also discussed yesterday, I think you remember, there is a concept called availability zones, where, and by the way, I'm also covering some of the slide by covering the whiteboard. So if you look at availability zones here, right, which is nothing but there are minimum 3 availability zones in one region, minimum, which nothing but the one availability zone holds a small of 3 data centers within Azure. So Azure is even more, um, how to say that, help customers to make their application more available within their local region or local territory. Because if you look at, if your region covers 3 availability zones, eventually you have 9 data centers where application is spread in case of fallback. That means they will make sure that your application is always available and always be highly performant. Between the data centers or between even these data centers or availability zones, these arrows says there is a high-end cable we call optical fibers, and those optical fibers are very high-end cables, which is 100 MB. Because my and in between also, if you look at the network they are building, if you look at from all over the world, like this is North America, South America, Europe, Africa, etc. All these cables is owned by Microsoft itself. There is no other cloud provider, service provider cables. For example, there is a BSNL connect to Dubai, how to say, telco, and telco will connect to Europe. As there's nothing like that. It's all the cables over the seas is owned and built by Microsoft. So these are their own Microsoft fiber in the ocean as well as in the um, basically all over across the continents is owned and offered by Microsoft, and that these networks are 100 gig, 200 gig pipes where the customers allow. So basically, they allow customers to transport the data from one end to another without any problem because you're a global company. For example, if you look at Unilever, for example, in India they call HAL, Hindustan Unilever, etc. So if those kind of companies are Procter and Gamble, etc. Those are global companies. The data needs to be transferred one into another. This network will help you to basically take your data from one into another without fragmenting the data. Um, I'll come back to the whiteboard again. So we also covered the low latency. Low latency means minimal time to reach. Latency is the time, but of course there is a different terms in terms of this cloud and some data center stuff. They call low latency because low latency means low minimum time to reach to your destination. Then if you look at productivity, that is very important. We will add more productivity to your business because if you're offering, let's say, X as a service, which is always available, always highly performant, or this performance is an awesome because whenever you open the website, it it immediately opens. Even if you're uploading document, it does very quickly. That is called performance. Others sometimes, when you want to watch the result on Mumbai University or any other university, and everybody is jumping to see what is my result is. Sometimes the website even not even opening the page, right? That is what it allow organization to make it more productive by allowing the services always available, always highly available, but also secure. Not everyone can just go and access that website because the student data or your result is particular to you. If you pass, you can say, hey, I proudly pass. If you fail, it's an insult for me and my family that, hey, I could not put enough efforts. So that data is very important to that particular user. So how you secure that particular information is also critical to the business. Then we talked about some services yesterday, right? And services in terms of, like we said, services means an applications. We talk about, hey, I mean roughly that there are a bunch of application, web application, mobile application, Oracle as a database application or SQL as a database application. There are some open source databases also, which you can take into account. But then sometimes container as a service, we have seen that. There are some serverless, as I mentioned, serverless means if you look at Lambda in AWS, which is serverless. So serverless means what? Let's assume that you have some bunch of services running in Azure, and you have within the Azure also there is a service called function as a service. and Lambda in AWS, for example. So what that does is there is a server which is not managed by you, not owned by you, not managed by you. That means serverless. You are not managing anything on that server. That is called less is nothing. You are not managing anything. But what you are doing on the server is you are configuring some script, and that script will automatically mitigate if there is something is going wrong here. Let's assume that, hey, you know what? If this virtual machine is shutting after 5 minutes, maybe you configure in such a way that you write a script that after 5 minutes the machine should not shut, extend the time to an hour, something like that. Just an example out of the box. So that script automatically help you to extend the timeline of that virtual machine or an application. And that is called Lambda as a service in AWS or function as a service in Azure will help you to write that. But that is called serverless. You're not managing server, but you write a script on that server, and that server script will help you, or this service, functional service, will help you to mitigate. These are the things we have seen, and without further ado, I really want to now walk you through the Azure part. Any questions so far? Any question, Poonam madam? Because I think I heard you unmute yourself.
Hello.
Preeti madam,
Yeah,
is
madam.
there any
Ask.
question? Preeti madam? Poonam madam, you can type
Yes,
your
sir.
question in the chat box. Sir, Poonam ma'am has typed a question in chat.
Yeah. So it's a great question. So federal cloud it's a great question actually. So if you look at Microsoft itself, right? Microsoft offer, and even not only Microsoft, Azure, AWS also, because the federal clouds are mainly deployed for governments, basically, right? If you look at US government, US federal government, they call federal government, that federal comes from US or federated cloud, is mainly built for a government only. That means if they build that cloud, it is mainly, even in that cloud means, of course, that in that cloud, and let's assume that, let me draw a picture that would help you. So let's assume that or federated cloud. So if you look at the region, let's say US, where if you look at America, right, Washington DC, where the Joe Biden sits. So DC area is very important. Plus there is a New York, of course. The major things in US, of course, US is a different state because every state itself is called as a country. So every country has their Senate, and Senate needs to have the data to be secured and keep it within that state. But also every state at the end attached to the Washington DC, where the President Joe Biden takes the decision. There is also the all the senates or the parliament seats there, right? And there you can imagine there are a bunch of departments, the defense department, the army, all the government services department. their data is super critical to that particular USA or United States of America or North America, you can call it. And then it is important for them, their data should be within their own region or within their own protected area. So what companies like Microsoft or maybe Amazon or maybe Google, etc., they have done, they have created. Oh, it's the same actually. To be honest with you, it's the same. But here, none of other customers allowed to build any application. So if this is a region, let's say Washington DC, I mean, if you look at the graph, the DC is here because they in America, probably you know that if you've been there, they call East Coast and West Coast. So this is West Coast where there is a California, San Jose, Palo Alto, etc. But if you look at here, there's a Washington DC, Boston, etc. New York is close to because it's series. If you look at this area, the East Coast, this part is what I was talking is the region. So if you look at this part, particularly Washington DC, they have the region itself because it is very important for every cloud provider to have federated services next to that. So they have built the region, which is very close to them, but also it is very secured. And obviously, that in that region, this region is for everyone, but there are a couple of data centers they have, IAGs they have built, that is for the federal government. I hope that answers your question. Here is more specific, US East, West, US government, Virginia, you see. Is all those things are part of their data centers. I hope the answer your question.
So, am I audible?
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to inquire about just now you showed that every particular area or they have at least minimum 3 zones. Like if there is a federated cloud and having a connection between two particular regions, different regions, how is there any connection? How because the entire data which is being sent, let's say a large amount or huge size of data is being sent from one country or one state, one region to another region, and they have their own federated clouds connecting. How is this zone helpful and how exactly the communication gets built? Little bit of how exactly the zone connect to them.
No, that's a good question. But if you look at now, ma'am, let's assume that US government, right, which is US government here, maybe there are some talks might go with different embassies because you can imagine that if US want to operate all over the world, they have their embassies everywhere, right? Like if you look at in Netherlands and India, they have their own embassy where you go for passport services, you go for visas, etc., etc. Or maybe the ambassador also knows in and out about what's happening in India, how they can help build the right policies in place from US or to India, how they can build the relationship, every information. But that means that some of the services they might run within. But they made government arrangement with cloud providers that make sure our data and even the collaboration between different different part of the world remains secure to us as a federal government. So if let's say in here like West India, for example, or Central India, if American federal government decided to have my own server there sitting into that, they first tell to Azure that make sure that my AZ1 or AZ2, whatever, it should be separate than the customer one. And they called it as a government. Just an example, they called it as a GOV, Go Cloud or federated cloud. See, cloud is nothing but is nothing different, right? At the end of the day, you have the region has availability zones, and the zones means nothing but a couple of data center which is connected by fiber, and make sure that one fills another. There's nothing like it is separately or differently built than the government cloud. The only thing is the data, access to the data, and basically operating that data itself should not be shared with among. So what they have done is, and they're proposing to customers like I'll come back to later, but now you touch it, so I will walk you through. There are a couple of there are a couple of instances when you say I'm going to get virtual machine here. That means I'm going to build on existing virtual platform. Let me walk you through so that you can understand. Sorry, I'm answering more detail because then only you understand my point. Because in one sentence, this answer cannot be described. So let's assume that there is a server. Probably you might have went through yesterday. There is a concept called virtualization, where you have the infrastructure and then you hypervisor, and in top of that you have guest operating system and then application, binaries, etc. Then another guest operating system application. That means this physical box is shared with, if we are configuring 64 virtual machine, that means 64 customers are sitting onto the same box. In the government cloud, that is not they want it. They want it, this server should be dedicated. Even if you're making virtualization, all the application is my government application only. I do not want, let's say, Amar Kalvikate has one company and that application want to sit into that existing server. They do not want it because they do not want that server itself also shared with among other services, because this is government applications and sitting my application. If something, I'm a super security hack person or I'm a champion, I can get government data internally here only. So they also propose to take even the servers or dedicated things rather than taking everything from the pool of services, or let's say shared services. There are many proposals are there actually. I will share you some link. You can go for more details if you really want to. But my point is, this fundamental is not changing, right? This fundamental. Every region has something. Now this region, even the same region, they have couple of availability zones where there are secure area within the data center. For example, if you look at the data center, meaning this is the one, right? If you look at the room is here, the room there, like here in this, let's assume that this is a region, right? And there in region there are two availability zones. Just an example. They might have done that half of this building and half of this building is government here, and in that there are no other customers sitting. The rest half they might have done for the rest of the world. Any customer can come here. They're not doing separately for this. Probably, if federal government might ask, hey, I don't want even to share the same building. I want my own building where I want. That is also done by Azure for federal government. So there is separate complete building here where it is only federated government infrastructure is built. Exactly the same concept, region, availability zones, etc. And that replicates to other regions also later on. When you wanna take data, of course, they utilize the same fiber also. It's not like they're digging separate fiber, but then over the network, how to segregate the traffic, we will talk when I talk about the network part. Where is my network slide? Yeah, this one. If you look at, even if it is a government federated region, the fiber going from particular, let's assume that this sky blue is government cloud and the others are for other customers. Their fiber connecting to other for federal government, let's say American federal government offices in Amsterdam or maybe in India, they utilize the existing fiber to take the data. They're not building separate fiber for them, right? But the security of allowing the traffic to go from that particular, I will let you know how that be done when I talk about network. But so far, I hope you understand.
Sir, I got the idea, sir. A little bit understood what is exactly you're talking. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Obviously, I'll if you want separately in detail, I can go in the
No, sir.
configuration. I can show you.
Sir, I had a doubt. If it was like if the federated cloud is there, so is that any sharing? Because if they want to connect to
No, no,
other
no, no,
particular,
no,
there is no sharing. That's the I
no
understood
sharing.
through the diagrams. Yes, sir.
Because because if you look at there are mission critical application, right? Because I don't want to take any bad words, but you remember when Obama was there as the president, they literally, without knowing anyone, they found out where the Osama bin Laden is, and they killed without any further information. So all the leaking information from one and two, because their offices and territory they have internet connected. All that information going from different channels. Maybe they're using cloud for sure, but every information, the communication channel they use over the cloud and over the phones or over their media or email or whatever you call it, it was completely transparent to them only in their department, defense and army. None of the world knows about what happened and how they did it. That kind of transparency also helped by Microsoft or Azure, so AWS, to make sure that data happen between any communication happen between. That is super secret, super private to that particular government only. So there is those things are always been taken into account because this is critical, right? Because if Obama knows, like Osama bin Laden knows that the American army is coming in next to me, he might have make another move to different world. So those kind of things always been done. See, at the end of the day, how the channel will work, even like even whatever things we are doing to Google Cloud, right? We are all on a Google Meet. We connect to the Google environment, and basically that data is transferred over that media, etc., etc. That is how they try to do that.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah, but to give you long story short, um, data between the government college is not shared with other customers. That is their private, their own built things, and that's the reason they offer Go Cloud or something. Different words for different cloud providers.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, but I really happy that you asked the question because very important question that not everyone can think of and ask about. Okay, so far we covered majority of the things as a basic knowing about Microsoft and Azure. Let me walk you through quickly because we still have 45 minutes, and let me go back and touch the slides. Any question,
Sir,
please do ask. Because yeah, go ahead, madam.
can we use the edge computing to reduce the latency issue of cloud computing?
Can you repeat your question again?
Can we use edge computing to reduce the latency issue of cloud computing?
Wow, that's an amazing question. I really loved it. Thank you for asking. Actually, let me touch that. What is edge computing is? It's a great question, ma'am. I'm really appreciate. So if you look at let me draw something for you. I would like to draw an IoT application. And actually, on the edge computing, when I was a European CTO at Liberty Global, as a telco, we were building a lot of edge computing. The edge computing is only possible to be built by, of course, cloud is also offering edge computing nowadays, but telcos are more effective organization who can offer cloud computing. But I'll let you know what does that mean. So first think about one thing. Let me take an application. Now you know IoT means Internet of Things. Internet of Things is nothing but every dumb device should be on the internet. Refrigerator, right? So let's assume that what's happening these days is, let's assume that is Monday to Friday we work, Saturday, Sunday we make parties, right? Parties means the case coming to home, we do some dinners or maybe celebration, etc. Because Monday to Friday we're super busy working, like husband wife they work and they have no time at all to fill something into refrigerator. So what they do, even the grocery shopping, they go into the weekends and do that. That means it happens only weekly, right? Once in a week. But how you want to operate that refrigerator on demand, right? On demand means without knowing, like, let's say if I'm leaving from office and tomorrow all of a sudden Amar decided to come for a dinner, and I want to should the vegetables should be available, the meat should be available, milk should be available, coffee, etc. But it is empty as of now. So first I have to go to home, then I take the bag, then go to my supermarket, and then basically I come and bring it. How can I utilize a system that tells me that, hey, my refrigerator is empty, before I reach home everything should be in place? So I can do online order to Amazon will deliver immediately, because there is a service, they make it available to reach within an hour. And before I reach, the packet is delivered with let's say groceries and milks and everything, and then I can go and dump it into my refrigerator. How easy, right? Now how can you solve this problem? Because IoT device, which is a dumb device, connect, because this is my home. Yeah, this is my home, and inside the home I have the cable modem. The cable modem where it is connected to the internet. But behind this home, I have the refrigerator, I have other dumb devices. I want to connect them to the internet via my cable modem and go to the internet. But then assume that this is my cloud, which is, let's say, it is 50 kilometers apart, which is running all the backend services and processing services. But to utilize my compute and utilize my ordering system, I want to put it very close to the customers, maybe 1 kilometer apart. So what companies are doing, like cloud providers or service providers, they're putting bunch of racks and servers into few areas in the city, same city. Let's say I'm living in Amsterdam. So in Amsterdam area, there are couple of cloud computing hubs where I'm putting, so that even this Amsterdam, let's say a big city, not as big as Mumbai or London, but it's still big city within Netherlands. And I'm putting couple of racks, a couple of rooms, so that customers very close there, customer close there, they still get their own closed data center, and then which is connected back into my cloud, so that the backend processing will happen here, but the front end processing happen very close to the customer. That means there is a less distance. That means that should be operate low latency, because low latency meant I want very immediate connectivity as well as the latency. Because if you look at here, 50 kilometers from your home to here, maybe it takes 1 minute to reach, 1 minute to get your response. So 2 minutes, will you wait for that much of time? Probably not. But here, if let's assume that it takes 2 seconds here and 2 seconds here, 4 seconds, I think 4 seconds we can wait, right, for a good response. So that's the reason customers are building more, companies, cloud providers or telcos are building more edge computing. Computing is what? A compute is nothing but a server, right? And server is what we learned yesterday. There it has CPU and memory and some storage. Nothing but, and CPU is nothing but a motherboard where you have all the intelligence available. It's a control plane, and these are the data planes which you can use. And then which help you to basically process your data faster. And this edge computing, which has a backend connected to the cloud, where you put all your intelligence like machine learning, etc., because you collect the data here and you process data in the backend, and then you get given a dashboard to the customer or end users, and then based on that they can just purchase and then add the inventory and the packet is delivered. This is much faster. Is that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Edge computing is nothing but a computing next to the end user, and you give me an opportunity to touch to the IoT, because this is mainly going to be useful, and not only IoT, also 5G, because the cloud providers, telcos are building 5G, and now in Europe 6G is more popular, going to be more popular soon. And 6G is they're expecting it will be up and running in couple of years. They are projecting 3 to 5 years that 6G will be available within Europe. That means you can imagine it's all about radio frequency, right? From my mobile to my next tower, which is on the building, how quickly my response should be so that the user has more um, or easy access to the applications and very fast access to the application. Plus, the coverage is covered. I don't see, like sometimes on the mobile you see only one or two lines, not 5 lines. But if your coverage is good, you see complete network so that the voice quality is good, the video quality is good, etc., etc. So that's the reason edge computing is more going to be more popular. And it's not only the IoT application or edge, but also blockchain applications and some other applications going to be more popular. But thank you for asking. I think these are the questions really important. And see, now you are helping yourself here, right? The more question you are asking, you are not helping yours, but you are also helping others to understand what is the concept of cloud computing, what is the concept of government, like federal government computing things which the cloud providers are doing. Okay, so back to the slides. I mean, I have covered a lot of things. If you look at now, if I go to Microsoft, that's it. They keep changing the logos because over the period of time also, and they transform themselves. And many things has taken into the place from the operating system to the now cloud provider. Not only cloud provider, but they're offering so many services like cloud as a service, the software as a service, the platform as a service, but also they are thinking like how they can take some new initiatives with the help of government and build something new. Plus they are doing some charity works also, right? And the charity works have different applications to serve to the end users. Bill Gates is donating billions of monies every year in Africa and some other places. So you can imagine he's creating like Bill Gates Foundation, which is part of Microsoft. So they are doing so many initiatives within Microsoft, and this journey is like remarkable. And I don't want to go to his personal life videos and everything because that's their personal life. But on a professional note, they are really adding value to the end users. If you look at infrastructure we have spoken about, is obviously they have regions across the globe. They're adding multiple regions. If you look at here, the blue is sky blue is like the regions are available. The green, the region is new, whichever is seen that they newly added regions. Some are announced. If you look at this, for example, they announced in Mexico last year. Some in let's say Spain, India, I don't think so because there is already built. But those are things. So all the things are important that where exactly the new regions are coming up. Every information you will find on learn.microsoft.com. As I said, availability zones, minimum 3 availability zones. That means within availability zone, there are 3 data centers. That means 9, if you have 3 availability zones using, you have 9 data centers where your infrastructure is laid down. We talked about the network, which is, of course, the network I will talk later on the design part, but on a high level, you know the all the fibers which connect all over the places. Because if you look at here also, and this region, if this region is connected to this, but if this fiber breaks or something goes wrong, has another fiber to connect to this one. Let's assume that if this region is broken because there are two cable connected, then this region cannot communicate to the rest of the region. That's the reason there is another cable goes to another region. So how much is the possibility that everything goes wrong? Maybe less chances, right? So there has always been, let's say, an alternative path to reach to the destination. Um, if you look at now designing part, right? I really would like to start. Do you? How much time we have? We have almost 25 minutes. So what I can do, in 25 minutes, I really want to touch the basics, and maybe that basic we can just quickly run a virtual machine. Maybe that, and then in the afternoon we can talk about building the labs. And remember, the network, the security, etc., that will pop up in couple of days, and we touch network for one day in detail, because then you really understand like how you can design your network, how you can take different IP subnets for different applications. There's a dev test, etc. um, or maybe departments like AC Patel College of Engineering, they have 4 departments. How the departments can consume a subscription. Every department should have their own subscription. That means the billing attached to that subscription, and any resource you create below, maybe virtual machine, maybe storage account, maybe database, etc. The billing of that resources should go to the computer department, because they're using that subscription. They have their own subscription. If electronics department who is creating another resources, their billing should go to that. And then this, let's assume that he is a principal sitting here. He wants to know who's basically consuming more cost out of my budget. Then he knows exactly, because he's everything is on top. Top can see bottom, bottom cannot see top. So that means a top guy who is a principal in your case, for example, he will see like, hey, how much cost is burning by computer department, how much cost is burning by electronics department, or maybe some other departments who has their own subscription. So how Microsoft operate is this way. When you create or sign up your own account, you basically will be part of global admin, and you, and whatever name you give, amarkalvikate.com, etc., etc., then my organization is automatically being created when I sign it off, right? When I sign a free account, by default your organization is created. In that organization, you can, if for example, this is very simple in Azure compared to AWS. AWS is super critical to understand. But if we hear a resource, maybe a database attached to the resource group. So basically, resource group is a container of resources. That means, let me walk you through the same slide. So just understand the resources, resource group, subscription, etc. I'll design that here. So when you start your journey to the cloud, specifically in Azure, the first and foremost thing you really need to understand is, first there is an Active Directory, but now they call intra ID. So first, as a user, when you subscribe yourself as a free account, by default you will become under the intra ID. And intra ID is nothing but like Amazon Web Services, there is a concept called IAM, Identity and Access Management. The same thing is Active Directory. Active Directory from Microsoft is already present for more than 25 years. Now they change the name because everything is cloud-based. They put the name like intra ID. So when you create your account, basically you are already part of intra ID, where user has access to all the applications. If you are owner or global admin, once you are part of the intra ID, what happens? You get the portal like this. For example, if you look at here, I get the account. This is switch directory. If I switch directory, you see here, it's Microsoft, etc. So I have directories, and you can create directories, and directories under you can create subscriptions. So what happens is, once you have part of the intra ID, you will be automatically directed to the main directory, because you are super admin here, because you created an account. Now let's assume that you are the owner. Let's say, for example, just an example, Ratan Tata, just take an example. Ratan Tata is an owner of that cloud, or Tata Cloud, whatever you call it. But under Tata, there are so many umbrella companies, right? That is they call conglomerate. Conglomerate means they are having businesses in every vertical, Tata, TCS, for example, Tata, TTSL, Tata Teleservices, or they called Docome in the past. Then, because I work for TCS, I know these things, but they have Tata Taj houses or Taj resorts, etc. So all these things is nothing but a management group. So if you compare this structure, which I just showed you, first you form the management group and then assign the subscription and create the resources. So first you need to understand, okay, I want to operate my Tata group. That's the reason the Gaurkai TCS previous CEO called Ian Chandra is now the Tata Sons chairman. So Tata operate under the chairman. So what he does, he first makes the group and all the CEO report to him for the revenue, etc. So what he does, he creates a management group of, let's say, Tata, TCS, etc. Under that, there is a subscription attached. There is no only one subscription. There can be hundreds of subscriptions. And hundreds of subscriptions, I just mentioned that every department can have their own subscription. Because principal wants to know who's burning the money. So if, as a group, you can have, I think 10,000 maximum is the limit, but you can have those many subscriptions. So once you have the subscription, then what you can do, you can create the resources. Resources means what? Like this. Now I have the subscription. I can create anything, right? If you look at the burger menu here, I can create a load balancer as a resource. I can create virtual machine as a resource. I can create database as a resource. These are all the resources. The concept brought by Microsoft differently in terms of, let's assume that there are resources here under the subscription. And let me make it clean even. Let's take another simple example now. I don't want to make complicated, but then you can correlate. Let's assume that AC Patel College of Engineering is the organization. I don't want to add too many things. They have management group. Let's say principal is a management group, yeah, and they have departments here. Department, let's say IT department, computer engineering or computer science, electronics and telecom, AT, maybe civil engineering or electrical engineering, whatever it is. Let's assume that they have 5 departments. Now, what you do is, as a principal or as a management group, you give one subscription to them. Everyone should have their own subscription. That means they have authority to create the resources in Azure. And if they create more resources, they build to that department. Then principal will say, hey, I have 1 crore to spend this year. Now I allocated, let's say 5 department, 20 lakhs each. So you have only budget of 20 lakh every individual for that year to spend. So make sure if the more costs come to you, you pay from your own budget. I'm not going to give as an extra budget. And this really happens. I'm just telling you the practical experience, but you correlate yourself. Now into that subscription, you created resources. Resources like virtual machine, database service, IoT service, what etc. etc. What Microsoft has brought is another concept called resource group. Make sure this is in resource group, let's say IT, you create all the resources under the resource group. Why they're doing? Because it's easy for you if you want to delete. Let's assume that tomorrow IT department is going to be dismounted. Just an example, because they're going to collaborate computer and IT into one. So why should I have 2 subscriptions? This subscription go off, the resources should be removed. When let's assume that you have thousands of resources configured. You have to go on the portal 1,000 times to delete everything. it's better if you remove the resource group, automatically 1,000 resources will be deleted. If you remove the subscription and if you have 1,000 resource group, 1,000 resource group will be removed. So how it operate is, if you look at, as I said, management group. So management group has subscriptions, subscription has resource groups, and resource group has resources. So resource group is a container of all the resources. So resources can sit within that resource group. Subscription is a container of all the resource group, because all the resource groups comes under subscription. So all the resource groups sits here. Manager group is a container of all subscription. I hope this is clear. And that is simple architecture built by Microsoft. And then if you want to look at here, when you configure a virtual machine, and if I create a virtual machine or application, the first thing they always ask is, what is the subscription and what is the resource group? Before you add any virtual machine details, first they want to know which subscription are you going to put. Are you going to put into, if I create the, let's say I create computer science and group, I create IT as a resource group, or maybe I create civil engineering as a civil as a group. And I say, okay, I use my, now I have only one subscription because I'm the owner, but if you have multiple subscriptions created, you can choose civil subscription, or let's say computer science subscription, and then you choose that group. Once you choose, let's say, create civil. Yeah, and now civil, if I put it, then you can basically put into the civil subscription, and you put into civil group. And the same subscription, you can create another resource group. That's possible because, as I told you, everything is a container of everything. The top resource. So management group has multiple. Management is a container of multiple subscription. Subscription is a container of multiple resource group, and a resource group is a container of multiple resources. Actually, this simpler architecture also tells you more, because if you look at here, let me go to the next slide. As I told you earlier, here you, instead of IT department, civil department, etc., you can, even you create a customer environment, you can say, hey, this is my development subscription development department. This is my test, who only test with the application build or running, and the production, who's, once the application is in production means customer started using, you basically look after it. So the billing goes and the control goes to the subscription level. You cannot apply any kind of bill access or billing at account level, management level. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind. So all the resources, part of the resource, so resources within that resource group attached to the subscription. And maybe there is another resource group can also attach to a subscription. That means the subscription knows that, hey, there are two resource group who's burning even more money. So they have all the control. Plus, if they want to phase out that particular resource group, they just remove the full resource group. All the resources behind the scene will automatically be removed. That's the easy part. That's the easy part. And the other thing is access level. When you want to allow access, you can allow on a subscription level so that it's inherited. Means if you allow access to the top, automatically the below people will get the same access, right? So for example, if you look at here, if I allowed access to the management group level, by default the same access goes to subscription, to resource group and resources. But if I apply the access instead of management to the resource group only, then that access is only allowed to the one level below, which is to the access resources only. So these are the fundamental things separate from AWS, which is done by Azure. And that is where it is important. Like I said, when HOD, let's assume that this is Patel College of Engineering. This is a principal, this is HOD, and then a staff, and then students. Just an example. When the chairman body says to the principal, and principal will broadcast the message, then that goes to all departments, all the professors, and eventually go to the students. But if it's not needed, it can be go up to the two levels. But if HOD announce, then HOD only announce for that same department, not, and that message not important for the other department, then it goes to the professor and the student. So depends where you put the access. I hope that example will help you how you design your architecture. And if you look at CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework, probably I put that somewhere here. I mean, one second. If you look at Cloud Adoption Framework, so it's exactly the same. If you look at this one, Azure Landing Zone, the concept is what I just explained is exactly the same. So obviously there is an Active Directory or intra ID. And intra ID you have the users, etc. You see users. Then you come to different, because these are the same virtual network. But what eventually you do, you start creating, you see here, once you have the tenant, you have management groups. And under management group, you have the subscription, identity subscription, etc. And in that subscription, you have the resources, right? The same thing. It's not, it looks big, but it simplifies here like this. So when you design, let's assume that now this is in terms of Tata Group, where you are the main tenant, you create multiple management groups, and one management group represent that complete group. Let's say Tata T as one group. If you take another same example, copy and paste, that group will be TCS, and then what happens? They both attach to the same tenant, who's the chairman of, for example, and then you design. So my point is, even if you're acquiring a new company and you're adding to your existing business, what to do? You just copy the same management structure and create a new group. And whatever policy you apply on the top, it by default goes to the same new group, which has been acquired, right? And that is the simplified architect you can start building from a day one. Any question on this one? Because even if you create any resources in Azure, even a database, let's assume that create a database, the first and foremost thing it always asks is the subscription and resource group. Anything, the same thing if I just told you, you should be part of a subscription resource group, and then you start creating a database as a resource, which is I'm just creating here, right? Or maybe virtual machine as a resource. When I create virtual machine, I create, first I need to choose which subscription that virtual machine or resource should sit. So I first choose subscription and resource group, and then the resource will automatically be part of the resource. This is the resource below. So resource will be part of the resource group. That resource will be part of that subscription, which is a container. That is how it works. And it is very simple. Trust me. That this exact configuration in AWS is a bit critical. Any question before I really take my conversation further? We still have 15 minutes. So this is called root tenant, by the way. This chairman is nothing but a root tenant, because if you look at Cloud Adoption Framework here, is nothing but a tenant root group, which is a root. Root means when you create an account, you become part of the root, and under you can create multiple management groups. And that easy because you just replicate all the policies you're applying on the top. If you already applied a policy on top, and if you create a group, you don't need to separately apply that same policy to the group. It is by default inherited. Inherited below means, inherited means what? Let's assume that you have your father-in-law, right? I hope you know the same, right? The same thing here. If your father-in-law has, sorry, a grandfather, my mistake. If your grandfather has, if your grandfather has 100 acre of land, then you have, let's say, 4 kids, that 100 acre goes to that, maybe divided of 25 acres each. Then you have 2 kids, it goes again 12. But my point is that 100 acre is not disappearing in your entire family. You still get it. Only the people and names are changing, the land remains the same. Only the land gets some partition, of course. But the same thing you do it here, more or less. Okay, so if there is no question, let me move further. Is there any question, madam, on the chat? Please share
No, sir.
PPT.
There are no
Okay.
questions. We can move.
Okay, PPT will be shared. Remember, like everybody is asking every day, my personal wish is, like, if you look at now, it is 73 pages. Over the next 5 to 6 days, it will be around 100 to 200 pages. I will club that same PPT and share with you at the end. So you will get that, trust me. Rather than sending every day, it's better you get it once and then you start studying for the exam, which I mentioned, like 900 and HZ 104. If you have these 2 exams, trust me, you will be really good. You're a knowledgeable person for Microsoft Azure. Then you don't need to do anything. These 2 exams will be covered. And look, this kind of knowledge also nobody tells you in any kind of other videos and everything, because this is a practical experience, and this is experience working with the customers. I'm just sharing with you how customer initiate a discussion and how that happens actually. If you're really interested, before I move on, because 5 days we still have enough time, and make sure I'll cover. But you really need to understand before you design anything. Whenever, and this is very important discussion, if you listen to next 10-15 minutes. So what generally happens, right? So let's assume that Amar is an executive director at Microsoft Nod. My job is to basically, I'll tell you, this is honest thing, huh? And please keep this information within, because nobody will share it. So my job is to make a business of 100 million every year. No matter what, I have to add 100 million minimum for this year as a target. So that means I have to add bunch of customers, top-notch customers, to make sure that, of course, that goes to more, sometimes 400, 500 million, because of your relationship, because of the people knows you in the market, and because you are a knowledgeable person in the cloud, you know how to pitch to the customer. So every executive has given a target of a revenue. If you look at principal of AC Patel College of Engineering, I'm damn sure that he has a target to add additional 100 students next year or this year, or maybe create an additional department where he can add the students. Student paid the fees, professor get the salaries, and then the management, after leftover, they can make as a profit from the organization. That is how it works, because at the end of the day, whether AC Patel College of Engineering or any other, it's a business at the end of the day. Education as a business, but business at the end, because he's an MLA, he wants to make money at the end of the day. So I have the target at the end of the day, right? And then how I achieve that target is basically, first and foremost thing, what I do in the Europe, and now I have given additional responsibility as Middle East and Africa. That means I first figure it out who are the top-notch customers in that particular territory, whether it's a new customer or existing customer. When it is a new customer, remember what I'm telling, you will get 20 years to learn this, because this is sales terminology. So new customer we call hunting. That means you go in the market on your own, hunt. Let's assume that Tata is not our customer, and Tata is not TCS. Tata is so many businesses. So Tata, I want as a business, just an example. who's not our existing customer. What I do, I start everything from a scratch. I first go to the LinkedIn and some other tools to understand who's the CEO, who is the CFO, etc., or CTO. How many connections I have in common so that I can easily connect to that CEO and make a pitch about Microsoft Avnat and what services and what product we offer. It's easy. Once CEO convinced that, hey, this is a guy and this is a company we can get on board, he will ask CTO to connect with. CTO asked me to connect to the down team. Then I might position my down team to those technical folks to talk to, and basically we start signing a contract. Everything is in the contract in the life. Huh? Just for your marriage itself is a contract. So you need to understand, once you sign the contract, there is a legal obligation that I get 100 million contract from
चला
Tata.
खाली जा चाललाय तर डॉक्टर दाबा बटन
Hello. Okay, so 100 million contract from my Tata. That means I have signed the SOW, statement of work, and that statement of work is defined that okay, these many things I'm gonna do as part of 100 million. If that things I did not deliver, I get a penalty back. And that penalty is maybe in terms of money, in terms of additional years to serve, etc., etc. That is always completely mentioned in SOW. Sometimes they call purchase order and terms and conditions, but generally it is a term called SOW or MSA, Master Service Agreement. There are terms, but remember, if you really understand this and you really want in the professional life, you will be successful director or CTO. So what my point is I get a target and I go to the new customer, which is hunting. If I also look existing customer, and let's assume that existing customer has only infrastructure as a service, let's say the acquired infrastructure service, and how can I basically offer platform as a service and software as a service, which is also a service we offer. I always try to see how I can expand my existing business and add number of services into the existing server as existing customer. That is called farming. You already have the farm, you start adding something or creating something in the farm. That is called farming. These are the sales terms, and that means hunting means going to the new customer and building the use cases. Maybe IoT as a use case, and then they like your service, you add additional services or additional people to work with them, and that's how you generate the revenue. Now my point is not about this one. My point is about the design. So when I go to the new customer which is a new customer for, and the existing customer which is hunting and what is that? Hunting and farming. So let's have any customer we go to. First, if I engage, let's say I'm a technology folk, so I talk to mainly CFOs and CTOs. CEO sometimes if it is a small organization, but generally in daily practice I talk to CTOs and CFOs day in day out. Sometimes I also talk to the chief architect or something. If really they ask me to, hey, Amar, you knows everything, you're super expert. Can you work with our chief architect and streamline the architecture and then put your engineers and architect on the job who can go and build it? No problem, because I really need to achieve my 100 million target. I can do anything for you. Yeah, simple. Because if I make that, I get my good salary, I get good bonus, I get promotion, etc. So for that, I can do anything. So that means what they CTO basically CTO says, hey, this is CTO always look at. CFO said my infrastructure will be built within 2 billion because I'm 100 billion capital company. CTO always look at, hey, whatever I want to do, the first important, now I'm talking about requirement. First thing is, whatever infrastructure you're going to build in Azure or whatever service you're going to offer, my budget is 2 billion. That's my first requirement. So I should not design or architect or build anything that costs more than 2 billion, then I'm out of the service. I'm not getting that contract. That's the first requirement, right? Then second requirement, if they said, hey, we can do within a 2 billion or 1 billion, let's assume that I said as a start, yeah, this is possible by using the calculators. As you know that Azure has calculators, you can calculate upfront how much that application build gonna cost you. So you use the calculator, not the normal calculator, the Azure calculator, and then you project, hey, that can cost you 1.6 billion, just an example. That means for the rest of the 400 million, you are already saving for them in that. So that means they still have budget of 400 million to reinvest somewhere else. That means one requirement I already taken into account. The second requirement is technical requirements. The financial requirement I have taken and fulfilled. Now technical, they said, hey, you know what? I have the data center. I need to migrate data into the cloud within 6 months of time frame. So that means there is a triangle coming picture. If you listen carefully, this knowledge will no one will give you, nor they will tell you in real practical. So every, let's say, building is a project. Everything is a project in the life. Project building, let's say 50-story building or 50-floor building, you need to complete in 6 months. You have 2 billion as a cost to basically build that. And what is important is the resources you're going to put to. So if the timeline is longer, you use less resource. If the timeline is very short, you use more resources. The more resources mean more cost. So you need to think, if you pull one part of the triangle here, the other two expands. And that is what happened in the real life. So when you gather the technical requirements and you want to build something, and let's say a migration of data center to Azure, you first ask how much time is required. So timelines. Always ask before gathering the technical requirement. Always understand what is the timeline. Budget you already know 2 billion, and then you decide as a company how many resources you're going to put for achieving that timeline and budget. And then go to the technical in-depth. Hey, you know how many database server you have, how many application server you have, which one you want to take into account first, which is first critical to the business, etc., etc. So you start asking more question. Why more question? Collect more data. The more data you collect, the easy decision making for you. Because if you look at a house, architect generally when he wants to build a small house, and we are architect every day. When you are designer means you're an architect. So that means let's assume that I want to build my own house. Always architect ask, as I said, timelines, budget. Let's say my 1 crore is my budget for building house within 6 months, because my daughter is getting married in 7 months, just an example, and I want my marriage to happen in that house, just an example, out of the box. And then he would start asking question. Hey, tell me how many living room. Sorry, you want one big living room, but how many bedrooms you want? How your backyard should look like? How big it should be? Do you want 1 floor, 2 floor story building? So you start collecting all the requirements from you. Based on that, make an architecture. Once the architecture is built, the builder or whoever is contractor start basically considering the same way as the architecture has been. That means we have to do the same thing in a professional life. Professional life in the sense, collect the technical requirement and then design that particular application server or design that database server. And then you start migrating, building and migrating to the cloud. This is really, it happens. And obviously, if you look at now, we took, first we understand, hey, how many subscription you want? Because if AC Patel College of Engineering has 4 departments, obviously there's a requirement of 4 subscription. How many resource group they create personally, that is individual choice of that particular department. Whether they said, hey, I have 4 professors and I create 4 resource group for each professor where they create their own resources. It's fine. But that is how you design from the day one, how your organization should look like below, and how effective organization you will build from the day one, so that it's more cost effective, but also more easily governed from the top. Even tomorrow, all of a sudden, asked by principal, can you give me how many resources, how many? Then you have easy answer. Hey, I have created 4 resource group, and every professor in the resource group asks how many resources you have created. If not, you know from the top, because top can see bottom and bottom cannot see top. That's the point. And that is a simplified architecture built by Microsoft. Now, if you look at the network, obviously the time is over, but do you have a couple of minutes, or we want to close it now?
Yes, sir, we can continue.
That's fine, right? I have time. But if you want 5 minute break and we can talk for next 30 minutes, it's also possible for me. Because you are listening for last 2 hours without any problem. So if you want 5 minute break and connect it after 5 minutes on the same call, I'm fine with
No,
it.
sir, we can continue without break.
Okay. So now let's come back again on the same topic, networking first. And as I said here, first we talk network. Obviously, this is not end, because this next 4 days we have all this covers in detail. So network is the first one, then the identity, security, and then once you understand this, we'll start building some applications. And we also understand some of the storage stuff, because in the storage also there are a couple of storage, right? The file storage is different. The block storage is different. Object storage is different. The table is different, and you will understand clearly and completely in details how you build it. So roughly, if you go to the services Microsoft offer, roughly on a high level, there are many services, but I touch the slide from the learn. Everything you get, whatever the slides, the first and foremost thing, you go to learn.microsoft.com. There's nothing hide and play. I'm not telling in my own stuff, because it's Microsoft stuff. If you go to learn.microsoft.com, in the documentation, there is so many things here. There are endless documents and all the documents are fully up to date. We are not adding any document if it is not being used in the production environment. Everything is fully documented here. You have in and out information. If you look at the Microsoft Cloud, then you get everything below. Like Copilot is newly introduced, hands-on tutorials if you want to build some applications, etc. There are a bunch of materials you will get it. And if you look at here also, I not this one, Azure Fundamental, for example, easy 900. By the way, if you really want to pass this exam, I also wrote a blog on kalvikatri.com. If you read that blog, you will surely pass in the first attempt. So this AZ 900 is the first exam. First thing you have to pass is this exam. Then only you are allowed to go to. Once you create the free account, start free. As I said, like AWS, you still have to go through the same process. Put your details, credit card information, and then you are allowed to get an access. Because I work for a company, I get free access. I can create so many resources. I don't have to pay from my own pocket. It goes to my Microsoft account, and they pay basically. My point is, even if you want to go to any exam, so of course there are training materials which you get to, but and learning path you will get more information. But if you look at Azure AZ 900, then the fundamental of I'm just going through walkthrough so you understand. Compute, network, storage. These are the 3 parts are covering. That means we are covering everything for fundamentals. And if you really carefully listen, then you can simply go after making your own notes, and after listening and making your own notes while listening. With that knowledge, you can go and pass easily. Because if you look at fundamental description, if I click on this one, we have already touched upon what is cloud computing, what is shared responsibility. That means infrastructure service, platform as service, and software as service. It's a shared responsibility, right? Because you manage something, they manage something. Then cloud models, the private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. Um, the consumption, everything is consumption based. The more you consume, the more you pay. The pay as you go model. If you look at cloud services types, and which we have already clearly infrastructure, platform, software, you already understood that. And majority of the syllabus we already covered for the Azure fundamental concepts. And then if you go back, and architecture, we have already covered some of the architectures, right? Like what is Azure, physical infrastructure, like regions, availability zones, etc. You create Azure resource, which is already been told right here, that if you want to create a resource, first thing you set up an organization. You set up, because automatically, even if you're not setting up here, when you create a resource, you immediately start configuring the resource group as subscription and resource group. Once you do that, automatically that means selected. Because if you look at civil is there, or DC is already created. Any resource you want to create, you choose the resource group. That resource will sit into the DC resource group. So the point is, we are covering in the syllabus wise also. So if you really want to go for an exam, we already covered so many topics already. Like if you look at Azure Container Function, Azure Function, which I told you, like serverless computing. That means you are not managing servers, you only write a script and you're done. Virtual networking, which is like VPC, right? I told you. Let me draw architecture for a minute. Then you understand few of the things also network today. And tomorrow onwards we'll go a little bit deeper. So tomorrow we'll cover network more, storage more, etc. So compared to
Hello,
AWS, yeah,
Hello.
ma'am.
So one small doubt regarding that resource group. Just now the architecture which you explained, the root tenant. The root tenant, suppose if the root tenant is AC Patil College or any other college, so the root tenant is there, and suppose students do, they do for practicals hands-on, and they have, just for mere understanding, they have created many of resource groups under those root tenant. And suppose some of the students and some of the customers forget to delete that resource group, so it will be continuously flowing in, because suppose if they have a free membership account of Azure as a student and inside that root tenant, so in like if they forget to delete that resource group, will it be continuously popping up on the email, or the root tenant can have the security label to directly delete that from its own side?
Yeah, so no, that's a good question. Just 1 second. Let me answer the question. So this resource, this is root tenant, okay? Which once you create account by default, and root tenant you cannot delete, you cannot modify. Once you create account, root tenant by automatically created. Under that you start forming group. Let's assume that the students who was creating is part of the computer science department. Just an example. 1 second. So there is a, let's say, IT department here, and the same goes here. Just to simplify, subscription and then resource groups. And there are a bunch of resources under resource group. So now your question is like, if the students are configuring a lot of resources under resource group, obviously the subscription will stay here, resource group, management group stay here. Resource group, unless all the resources, let's say Amar is one of the student here, and I'm configuring the virtual machine, and you as another student configuring the database service. Either a student can remove their own virtual machine, you can delete your own database service. But if I'm not doing that, it will continuously, because how the charging happens in Microsoft or Azure, AWS, etc., hourly based charges, right? Every hour you have to pay the cost of the virtual machine and public IP and the storage cost you use. Now, If I keep running that, you pay, still have to pay. No matter whether I leave the premise and come after a week, that machine is still running. Whether you're utilizing that machine or not doesn't care. Microsoft see that the machine is in a running state, like I showed you yesterday, and you have to pay per hour. Now, if you remove the resource grab, let's say Amar forgot, but you are working something important on database and you want to keep the database running, there's no point removing the resource group, because if you remove a resource group, everything will be deleted. So either an individual student can remove their own resources if the resource group is so critical, or create additional resource group for Amar, and maybe Amar create one virtual machine or 1,000, doesn't matter. So once Amar is leaving, then remove the resource group. There's no impact to that particular database. Either that's a design thing. Design thinking. Yeah? This thing I'm telling you is a design concept. If you only have one resource group under the subscription and there are hundreds of student part of it, and you don't know, like even if you see that 100 student configure 100 things and they forgot to remove, they're students, right? They're students, they forgot, it's their not fault. They said, hey, I don't care about the charging, it's not my account, it's college account, I paid my fee, and if they pay extra money, who cares? But obviously you as a HOD or you as a professor really cares, because you don't want to add cost to your department, right? So either you can tell strict to student that please remove your own resource, or if they forgot, you can remove resource group which the student is attached to, but make sure that that resource group is part of, because there is a limit you can create, how many resource group you can create under the subscription. I will share that slide link tomorrow early morning. I'll do find out and send you. But my point is, design in such a way that even if you want to remove your resource group under that there are resources, the organization is not going to impact, because the other resource group are very critical and they should run. Is it clear, or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. Okay. So where I was? Okay, I was in a resource group. Now what we can do is, any other question, by the way? Please ask the question, because your doubts on a design will be clear, and you will fundamentally understand like how you design your organization, how you design your course structure for the students. So basically, if you have 100 students, best create 100 resource group, allow them, because then also you understand the Amar as a person, how many resources is created in the resource group, and you can go and look at here. If you go here and home page, and you see, hey, these are the resources created, right? And how many are the resource group? You see here, the type is resource group. 3 months ago, if I click on the resource group, I see that, hey, there is no resource here. But if I go to another resource group and I see, hey, there is no resource group, but there is one resource group, which is my vault. Vault is nothing but a backup, which is service recovery vault, backup vault. Wherever the virtual machine, I created a backup so that my virtual machine will have backup close to that. That is charging to me. So that means this resource group, SA, right? I cleared it. Sorry, not SA. The one I just, which one I, DC, I believe. But anyway, SA, for example, in this resource, blob as a storage, is under SA resource group. That means the resource group has only one resource. Maybe I have hundreds of resources here. I exactly know this resource group has how many resources, and that is the reason it is costing me. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so I think in next 15 minutes, let me cover the network part. I'll go back to, is this whiteboard useful for you to understand, or the slides are useful to understand? I think, in my opinion, the whiteboard is easy because I can draw and tweet your questions in a very easiest way. But let me draw again the network first to understand. Make sure I'll utilize 15 minutes to understand network. If you look at AWS versus Azure, what we have learned yesterday is if you want to put any resource, let's say virtual machine as a resource, and also here, of course, they call EC2, not virtual machine, they call EC2, like Elastic Cloud Compute. So Elastic Cloud Compute. So how the two comes actually, because see here, oh, come on. Sometimes it's not. No. So C here and C here, cloud compute, 2 times C, that's the reason it is 2. Elastic cloud compute, just to understand for you. Azure says virtual machine is nothing but a server which is virtual into top of hypervisor. So if you look at AWS and Azure, in AWS, first, I told you, like, first and foremost, you have to choose the region, and then you create a VPC. Under VPC, there are subnets, and under subnets, you have EC2 or any sort of resource, basically. So that means you have the VPC here, and then you create a subnet, like we seen yesterday, and into that subnet, you have the EC2. So VPC here, and then you have the internet gateway to go to the internet. Then you have the direct connect gateway to connect to your on-premise data center. The same thing, and maybe a alternative is a VPN, because is 1 gigabyte of a speed, but also cheap. But if you really want more data to transfer, you use direct connect, which is a fiber between your data center and Amazon. And then obviously you can build multiple VPCs in the region. If you want to replicate your infrastructure to other region, you copy the same architecture and build it there. Exactly in the same thing, same way you do it, but a little bit differently. Here, we don't call it as a VPC, we called virtual network. Like virtual network. So VPC in AWS is virtual network in Azure. When I say subnet, we have the subnet also, but it's not like the same way as AWS, because AWS, the problem is, from the design point of view, they have the public subnet and there is a private subnet. Because the lab which we have done was different, but in reality, they have the public subnet on the top and the private subnet at the back. We don't have that one. We have different architecture. That's the reason they call landing zone. I will walk you through tomorrow what is landing zone is. The landing zone architecture is nothing but you design a public subnet in a hub fashion. So what is hub fashion means? Let's assume that, let me draw a small architecture here. So we called as a hub and spoke. Hub and bunch of other application or departments. Let's say I have 4 departments, so I can create 4 virtual networks. And maybe let's assume that AC Patel College of Engineering is all over Maharashtra. Mumbai is hub. Let's say Pune, Nagpur, Kolhapur, and maybe another part in the Maharashtra. Maybe let's assume that which is Palghar, for example. So make sure your new offices are created. So this new virtual, basically virtual VPCs in AWS, but Azure, I create a virtual network. So I created 5 virtual network, but my Mumbai is my HQ headquarter. And this everything is in cloud. This everything is in cloud. This is whatever I'm talking about. But now I also have in Mumbai my own data center because that is where my building is. And this main headquarter where I want to put my common services. Common services means internet or maybe connectivity to my data center, sorry, my own data center or my own building into Mumbai. So this is VPN, and this is my, they call direct connect for 10 gigabit links. We call express route, express express route, which is same concept. They offer VPN, we offer VPN. Even Oracle offer the same, Google offer the same express route. Obviously, we have even more connections and different designs, like we call VWAN, virtual WAN, but that is more for the organization who has thousands of locations all over the world and they want a simplified routing. We have another concept VWAN, but I'm not going that details because that is a expert level architecture certification, but also that knowledge you need to have. But I am not going that deeper. But for simplicity, just comparing two architectures, this is your own data center. You basically connect. So my point is, when you go to the internet, you basically have the connectivity here, and there is a firewall, Azure firewall, AZF, which will all cover into security. This is my VPN router, and this is my direct connect router. All that. So basically, what I'm doing here in the architecture is simplifying the architecture. My Pune branch wants to talk to the internet, it goes to the common channel, go out. Nagpur the same way, the Kolhapur and the Palghar the same way. That means if something needs to add a policy, I put a policy at one place. I do not want to add policies in multiple places. That will be too much of overhead. Overhead means too much of work, too much of insimplicity. Because if I want to break something, I can just break this off. There is no impact to others. Or if there is something broken here, there is no impact to others. But also, if let's say Pune wants to talk to Nagpur, for example. What happened? Something goes wrong. It's broken or something. Oh, sorry. Sorry. There's no way you can. No. Yeah, I was here. So if you look at now, apologize. So if you look at the Pune wants to talk to Kolhapur, you come to, of course, this like in VPC, we also learn one VPC wants to talk to another VPC. You don't need to go to the internet or gateway. You can make a VPC peering. Here we call VNet peering because VPC, this virtual network is nothing but VNet in short. Virtual networking is VNet and they call VPC. So they make VPC peering. We do VNet peering between the virtual networks. So once you have the VNet pairing, what I do, I want Pune to talk to Nagpur. I make open firewall connection here that, okay, P can talk to N and it has to go via firewall. But if the firewall, Pune cannot talk to, let's say, Kolhapur or Palghar, I don't open port on the firewall. That means it by default block. If you're not opening or allowing the connection, then it becomes block. It's like a gate pass. Whoever has a gate pass, they can just cross the gate. The same thing. And that is the beauty of this architecture is you build hub in a common area. Obviously, it's everything is a cloud, of course, but only when you do VPC pairing between, then all the connection common to the rest of the world. Like if they want to go to, they can just use the common channel to go to their data center. But you can restrict the access on the firewall to which communication should happen and which communication should not happen. Of course, everybody wants to talk to the HQ or headquarter. That means they can talk to, but the other department, they should not talk, or they have to talk. They have to basically share the information here and should go. This architecture is so popular, and that is what we called as a landing zones. It's a big concept. Every big customer we build this architecture actually, landing zone architecture, where you have the common hub, where the common services are. Because you don't want, see, the point is, if your data center where your main office is and want to communicate to every other VPC, you cannot build the direct connect, you cannot build the VPN. Of course you can build it, but the cost you are adding plus manageability, you have to manage 4 different express route, 4 different VPNs. If they fall back, you have to recreate it. Rather than you have the common channel which you can utilize, then everything will be automatically taken that into account. So those are the design questions you really need to think in an account. If you look at in AWS, that is not the case. Of course you can do, but there are a lot of restrictions. That doesn't mean that I'm saying you don't don't use AWS. But you need to also think, like, if the organization is so big and there are hundreds or thousands of VPCs, how you simplify the architecture. The other way, if you look at, if by default you say, hey, you can talk to each other, so you have to make VPC pairing between here, VPC pairing between here, VPC pairing between here. Then again the same thing, VPC peering between here. That managing the VPC peering becomes the nightmare, because you make the full mesh, and if something is broken, troubleshooting is very big issue. You take hours and hours to find out where the root cause is. So that's the reason, if the connector is broken between this to this, you just look, hey, firewall, the support was opened, is somebody delete that port, then you add that port, the problem is solved within a minute. If there's a VPC peering between this is broken, this is working. But if they want to talk, P wants to talk to another P, either of the VPC peering is broken, then fix the peering in a minute, then easily they can talk to. So these are the things you really need to think about while designing any sort of application or architecture. And then once you know this simplified architecture, a VPC is, or VNet is nothing but the same, right? So for example, if I want an application, let's that my Pune, let's assume that this is my hub VPC where I have a common hub, let's say internet gateway or firewall or my express route gateway, etc., which is connected to my data center, is connected to internet, and I have my big VNet, because VNet is a Microsoft concept. So I have big VNet, and I want to put a bunch of application, let's say my web application, my database application, just an example. So I create a subnet for first I create VNet, which is 10.0.0.0/16, then create subnet within that /16 is, let's say, 10.0.1.0/24, and for the web I create another subnet 10.0.2.0/24. And then once the VPC peering is done, that means by default this network is exchange between. So let's say this is 20.0.0.0/16. The 20 can reach to 10, 10 can reach to 20 when you make VPC peering, because it's a bidirectional, right? As I said, VPC peering is always a bidirectional, not unidirectional. And then once you build, they both network can talk to each other. Now, if I want the same way like AWS, if I want web server talk to database, what I create security group in AWS. Here we called Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Look like I thought I lost the voice. So if you look at a security group, we call NSG here, Network Security Group. The same thing, but naming is different. In AWS also we called EC2 talk to another EC2. We create a security groups. And the same thing in a network security group is the same like stateful. That means inbound is allowed, by outbound is by default allowed. So you don't need to create two times separate NSGs. And generally, in the only difference between our NSG and their SG is we apply this NSG mostly on subnet level. So once you apply it on the subnet level, let's say 2 network where 251 machines need to be created, automatically that if you create 200 machines or application in that same subnet, that NSG is by default applied. So we are also thinking 100 times, let's say further, that why do you create another NSG and spend time and again troubleshoot if something goes wrong? It's better you apply that NSG to the subnet level. By default, that access will be given to the new machines who you are creating. And that is a simplified architecture we are building actually. So NSG is one of the security parameter. Like in the security also, if you look at just I'm not going too fast, but just to understand, firewall I covered, right? Azure firewall is a firewall. So if you look at what it does, spoke one, spoke two, which is nothing but Pune can talk to another Palgar, which is Pune is one spoke and Palgar is another spoke. That means two spokes. They need to talk to, but they should have to go to the firewall and come back. When a spoke wants to talk to on-premise data center, that has to go to the firewall, which I told you, right? You have to go to that common hub where the firewall is and then connect to. The spokes want to go to the internet, for example, it has to go to the firewall because traffic is denied by default because it's a firewall. It only allows the traffic when you add that communication. Spoke one, go to the internet, put into this as a access rule, open that access. Open means allow, and then only that access will happen. Otherwise, by default, wall. It's a wall between. By the way, probably you know the word called external or unprotected versus protected. Let me touch that one small because tomorrow when you really wants to also talk, you need to know that. So, for example, this is my firewall, which is a wall between internet, which is untrusted, right? Untrusted network, and your own Azure or own data center, just an example, where the application is sitting. This is a trusted network because you trust your own network. But can you trust internet? No, because there might be hackers or malicious user. They can basically burn something and want to get something out of their application server. So inside you have to allow firewall. Outside also have to allow firewall because there might be hacker inside your network who's trying to spook something. So that doesn't mean that your network is only inside and sorry, hacker is only outside and there might be people are doing something wrong. It's not hacking, but also they're downloading wrong software that has a virus or bug or something. They're basically burning your entire network. So you also make sure that you block something on the firewall. Some colleges or some uh, offices, they block Facebook, they block LinkedIn, they block some other let's say a bad website, so that they are not allowed to go to the internet. So all that restriction you have to do between trusted and untrusted network. So that is the reason firewall is so important, that you allow only the communication you really want to make it between the source and destination. Security group and initial security group we just created covered. Like there is energy here, energy. If you look at here, I applied the energies to the subnet level, which is 10.1.1 or 10.1.2, and this once you apply energy to the network level, these two machines by default can talk to here if it is allowed. If not, then you don't. So if, for example, if the internet traffic is coming and wants to talk to the database or application server, it first has to go to the web server. Web server NSG will open the connection to another NSG, and then only allow HTTP, not any other protocol. If you allow HTTP, other protocol is by default denied or not gonna allow you to connect. So those are the things. And if you said applied on subnet or NIC level, of course you can apply NIC level, but let's assume that you have 250 servers. You have to apply it 450 times actually on the particular NIC, means network interface card, network interface card of that particular server. So it's not recommended to apply it. But if it is a strict security requirement that you should, then only apply to the NIC. But again, it comes from the customer choice. But as a provider, you have to recommend them to work, basically apply on the subnet level, because you simplify their life.
Sir, hello, sir.
Okay.
So one small
Yes, ma'am.
question, sir. Sir, regarding those pairing just now which you enforced on, the pairing between the internal pairing, suppose if particular region, suppose Palghar or Pune, they are doing an internal pairing and having a communication. At that time, is it possible that the two pairing of the source subnets could be actually governed by the protocols like, infrastructure protocols like your TechX and Radius? At that time, security might be assured. Is it like that?
I did not understand your question clearly. Can you repeat again? So, for example, let's
The
assume that
architecture which you were just mentioning before.
yeah. So basically, you have hub here, you have Pune, and here a Palghar, correct? And this is a VPC peering. Sorry, VNet peering.
VNet pairing, the internal pairing between the two particular regions, if they want to communicate, bypassing the hub.
See, it doesn't matter. This hub is part of. See, generally it is everything in the same region. Yeah. So all the VPCs are part of the same region. But if you want another, because why you want to do that again is a GDPR rule. You want to keep everything within that data center, region, right? If you want America to have the same architecture, within the same architecture, you create this exact replica of this one. Create another hub and connect to the local office via lease line or VPN. But when it is at the same territory, like Maharashtra as a state, within Maharashtra it should be okay. But if tomorrow, if this is in Uttar Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh, like Yogi Adityanath said, hey, you know what, I don't want my Uttar Pradesh communication or internal communication should connect to Maharashtra. It only should connect to my office here in the head office, but not backwards. You can do that communication also.
So my question was, like, internal pairing means, in the sense, if they, although they are connected to the virtual network, they are connected to the hub, true. But you also gave an example, no? In suppose, for instance, the two particular regions, like for Pune wants to talk to Palghar internally bypassing the hub, because once they are onto the hub, they have to bear the firewall norms. So they cannot do that. But if there is an internal pairing between these two, and how is the exact communication being? Because there will be problem, or there will be, how the problem will be solved if there is an internal protocol or some rules and regulations which will be governed to do those two regions. Is it like that? Something will be, how the communication will be built up? Secured communication.
See, everything is, first of all, if you are in Azure, everything is secured, right? First of all, so you don't need to worry at all. Because you are not
the
going
pairing of VPC, not Azure, like in the AWS, so theek hai, but in Azure, if you're doing a pairing and a pairing between the two regions is there, so is it possible that the two regions are communicating and still there is no problem of security issues? There will be problem of security issues arising, but true. But how are they going to manage those security issues?
Yeah, because if you look at the virtual machine and data is yours. The entire physical infrastructure is not yours. It is managed by Microsoft, right? Which I already told you while this showing you the diagram here. If you look at this one, just
Or they'll be filtered out immediately when the pairing, if they show some security barriers or some security issues, immediately
No,
the
no.
pairing will be discontinued. And
no. Actually, generally, what happens, I'll tell you. Let me show you the drawing first. Where is that actually? My bad. So if you look at, first of all, there are a couple of regions. The pairing happens over the physical links, right? Everything is virtual. You look like VPC, but physically it happens over the fiber. Yeah. So all the regions are connected from here and there. That's one thing. That's one question, one answer. Second one is, even if you make a pairing between, this is one region, and this is a US region, this is Europe region, for example. In the India region, just an example, because Pune and Palghar in India. The communication, either if you don't want to go here, you can build direct VNet pairing between the Palghar and Pune. That's possible. And if you really want to block some protocol, like you said, TACAX or Carbos or any other, if this two needs to talk to on that protocol, you open the NSG. If not, if you're not open, that means it's by default not allowed, right? But if you don't have NSG, but if you have the firewall here, so you can also open that firewall ports like the Carbos or TACAX or STTP or SSH or whatever protocol. But once you make the VPC peering, what is by default allowed is the network can talk to each other. But that doesn't mean the network talk means the application can talk. There's a routing between the two. This 10 that if you ping from 10 dot network to the 20 network, you're allowed to ping. But that doesn't mean you can ping to the IP address sitting into that machine, because that is where, because on the subnet level, you already applied the network security group, right? Just I mentioned. And that will block the traffic. This one, if you look at here, even this network is there. This is region. Let's assume that in region. There are in region 2 subnets. Unless, even if the routing is there, because the by default 10 network can reach to each other, but doesn't mean you can reach on an application level. To reach on an application level, you need an NSG. If this energy cannot open on that energy, you cannot talk to. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, sir. Now I got it. It's security group barrier over there.
Yeah, security group is a barrier. That is a restriction point. Like if you go to the building, you have the security guard there, right? The security guard will, if he knows you that, hey, you are the residents of this building and I see your face every single day, I will not ask you to register on the account, and maybe I am not allowed to ask question. But if you are new to the building and if a new face, he immediately asks you, sir, you are not allowed to go inside unless you call to the residence guy and he said, sir, allow this guy to come inside the building or to my home. The NSG exactly does the same. Correct?
Yes, sir, got it.
Yeah. If you look at where we were standing, is the NSG security groups. I'm just covering some of the stuff. We have covered the network like NSG. ASG is nothing but application security group. Let's assume that you have 10 applications and you want to apply the same rule. Put every application into that one group, and then allow the communication. That means there's application security group. You don't need to add separate actually. Azure DDoS. DDoS, I don't know whether you know DDoS. DDoS is runs based on the DNS. DNS means what? Domain name services. Probably you know, like for example, let me type something for you. I hope that works here. Let me check. Let's say, since we are let me check. So if you look at, come on. So this acpc.org. Yeah, let me take it here. acpc.org. So acp's www. acpc.org. See, I can remember Anna Patel College of Engineering, if I'm not mistaken. I can remember the name. but I cannot remember the IP address attached to this one. Just an example, 10.1.1.1. Maybe some different IP, but if you want to check it, what you can do, you can go to the CMD and it will show me NS lookup. Yes, let me copy that one. I hope it shows if my DNS is resolved. Yeah, so if you look at now, Anna Saheb Patel College of Engineering, AC Patel, they purchase a public IP address, and that public IP address is attached the domain name. It's a domain. Basically, this is the domain. FQDN is called fully qualified domain name. But basically, this AC Patel is the name. But actually, on the internet, what you purchase is a domain. With domain means an IP address. This is a public IP address you purchased, and this is owned by AC Patel College of Engineering. This IP address you cannot own because it's already owned by AC Patel College. So this is called DNS, Domain Name Services. That means a name basically tagged to the IP address. That means this website I'm accessing from Netherlands, that means is basically allowed to access over the internet, because this IP address is an internet IP address, public IP address. When I say public, internet is a public network, not the private network. Private is your own network. Amazon network is a private, Microsoft network is a private network, not a public network. But you access that Microsoft network over the internet. Because if you look at, I'm connecting to the portal.microsoft.com, I'm first connecting to the internet and then accessing the portal. But internally, within whatever I created, is into Amazon, Microsoft private network. Clear? So
Yes,
when I say that one, and now back to DDoS. So DDoS is nothing but a domain name services, where this domain, the IP which I just showed you, this IP, which is 110.21, this IP is tagged to the AC Patel. Now this is a domain. So what hackers does is, because let's assume that AC Patel College of Engineering is the top one in Mumbai, just an example, and they have really good reputation, because the student with, like, if they pass the 12th or if they pass the diploma 3 years diploma course, there is a highest merit list, and getting into that college is like a privilege. But I want to break the brand of this college. How I can brand the brand? I can put something fishy onto their website. First, I want to, don't take me wrong, I'm not talking, just as an example, otherwise please don't catch. But assume that this college is so reputed, I want to break the reputation. That means this website which looks beautiful, I want to add something fishy into that website. What hackers does is, they just try to do DNS. This is DNS, by the way. DNS is domain name services, which has something alias and IP address, like combination 103 something. So what is my domain name is AC Patel. And what the users, hackers do over the internet is, these hackers, or let's say bad guys, they try to get access to. So they do spoofing somewhere, and they do DDoS, basically DNS based attacks. They make DNS based attack. If there is a no WAF, web application firewall configure for your website, who basically has some sort of false negative sort of, it's too much detail, but I'll tell you that there are some false negative, false positive sort of policies there, which reject all your requests coming to my website. The WAF will block that on the internet itself before even entering to my network or my private network or my internal network. And that is called a DDoS protection. So every cloud provider has their own WAF as a solution, which is call it DDoS protection. We called it. DDoS is denial of services attack. So denial of services attack distributed, and this D is called distributed denial. This because now this is one thing, you have hundreds of different sites, hundreds of different businesses, and then you're under, and they want to collapse the entire brand. For example, if you're Amazon has multiple websites, right? AWS, Amazon.com, Amazon Flight, etc., and they want to completely burn the brand of Amazon. That means they're affecting every website. If the brand is affected, all the business behind the scene is affected. That is what they do. So that's the reason what you do. You basically put a web application firewall, which is DDoS protection, on the internet edge, so that they block on the internet itself before entering to your network. So that's one thing. Data security, key vault encryption. Encryption, I told you, is nothing but you are adding a cipher in between source and destination. That means, as I told you, VPN, right, virtual private network. So when you create a VPN between your data center and your cloud, as an alternative, for example, if you have you have your own data center and you have the cloud, then you create a VPN. Generally, the sign is like a lock. But generally, they also called site-to-site VPN. Site means what? This is one site, this is another site. Between the two sites, which is site-to-site VPN. Right? What it happens is when you configure VPN between your two routers or two firewalls, if I say hello message from here, he get hello message. But if there are hackers, and this VPN you have to build, VPN you have to build over the internet. That means this is the internet in between. The hackers which you are sitting on top, let's see here, who's trying to snoop the traffic to see where, hey, that site one has sent some message, I want to read that message, and I send dirty message to the other side to make your bad reputation. But they don't see that because everything is encrypted in between. So if you say hello, they will say like 1, 2, 3 hash, something like the message. That is a cipher message. That means there is an encryption added, and it will other side it will do decrypt. So encrypt the message and other side it decrypt the message, and that will always happen, as I told you, with the pre-shared keys. And the pre-shared key should be known to both sides to get that message. That is nothing but another security approach, which is encryption. And encryption can be not only between the site-to-site VPN. If you have, let's say, a server, and you want to add the encryption to the server level, you can do that. Plus, if there are keys to manage or get access to, there are two type of keys: customer managed keys and the Microsoft managed keys. That means you don't need to remember. So let's assume that there are two keys which to manage the server. There is a key called customer managed key and Microsoft managed key, right? Customer means, let's say Amar is a customer or engineer who's managing the key. I know all the keys because I'm managing it. But tomorrow I leave the company, or tomorrow something happens to me while traveling to the office. All the machines who has the keys is gone because you're the only one knows. Or maybe I forgot to keep the data backup copy of those keys to somewhere else. It's better Microsoft manage, because Microsoft knows how to store the keys in a fallback scenario. If the X is fallback, they can pull from the Y, and they can still support you to have that keys. So generally recommended approach is to choose the Microsoft managed keys, encryption keys, to manage your applications. Um, a key vault is nothing but a vault, of course, is like a backup. So, for example, wherever you have the virtual machine, you create a key vault. So, for example, this is a VPC. So, better create a key vault next to it, because then you can make a backup here. Wherever the virtual machines, you make a backup here locally, you create a key vault. And key vault is nothing but a backup solution from Microsoft. Identity, multi-factor authentication. Let me take 5 minutes. I'll tell you what is identity, and then maybe we can close the session and connect later, because I'm talking. Need a coffee a bit. So let me take identity as a topic for next 5 minutes, which is also important topic. Identity, which is, I told, intra ID from Microsoft. So if you look at on the portal, and if you go here, you see the intra ID somewhere here. Microsoft intra ID, yeah, intra ID. So Microsoft intra ID is nothing but where you can create users, you can put users into groups, and you see there are thousands of people here in the group. But I'll show you what is that means. So intra ID, previous name was Active Directory. Active Directory was so popular name for years, but since Microsoft, but this Active Directory was mostly on the on-prem, means customer data center. But now cloud has popped up. They changed the name, everything. Actually, they even had a name called AAD, Azure Active Directory. So if Active Directory in the customer data center, but if you move to the cloud, you are in Azure Active Directory, you call it. But now they said, hey, you know what? This is confusing. Let's make a one common name, Intra ID. So now Intra ID is a common name. So now what basically Intra ID is? So Intra ID is like this. Any users, user 1, user 2, user 3, or thousands of organization users, let's say 1,000 users in the organization, wants to connect to any application within Microsoft Azure, right? Let's say VNet 1, VNet 2, whatever it is, and there are a bunch of application here, bunch of application there. And then let's say this is my department, like computer science department, this is my electrical department. And let's assume that 500 people out of the 1,000 should be part of the access to the application within computer science, and the rest of the 500 into that. So what I do, I create a group CS and group EE. I add 500 users part of that group. The rest 500 I use out of here, and then allow the access accordingly. So in intra ID, you create groups. Basically, you first create a group and add users to the group. Because once you create a group, all the policies applied to that group is applicable if a new user is being created. But if you apply policy to the user, then you have to do that policies 500 times if there are 500 users. It's better you apply on a group level, right? That's the beauty of things. Even if the user leaves the company, or he supposed not to basically part of, he moved to the department from one to, maybe he's a professor here today and he wants to go into another department. So what you do, you take the user out, move into the another group, and then he get all the access of that level, and he access the only applications in the electrical department. That's the one thing. Second thing is a multi-factor authentication. The multi-factor authentication means what? Probably you heard like token, right? For example, like OTP. In India, if you're doing bank account, let's say, hey, SDFC Bank, for example, or SBI, whatever you call it, you log in with username and password while doing net banking. And then what happens? On your mobile, you get 4-digit OTP. which is extra password, right? Because anyone hacker can scan your password, username and password, and try to access to bank and make bank transaction. But he cannot hold your mobile. He doesn't have access to, and you are in India and he's in somewhere. He cannot read the 4-digit code. So that's his additional security. OTP is nothing but a multi-factor, because multi-factor means this is one factor, this additional factor. People have three triple authentication also, but they're too much. But this is what multi-factor is. So what you can do when you configure and recommending customer, you can configure like Google MFA is there also, but sometimes Microsoft has their own solution called Authenticator. So if you on mobile, if you go to the App Store or Gallery, you can just type Microsoft Authenticator and you configure Authenticator where you have to add the code, then only you can able to log in, even if your username and password has been matched. But unless and until you're not putting that authenticator code or OTP code, you're not basically get logged in. So that is called multi-factor authentication. Conditional access. Conditional access means you put a condition. Amar will only access if he certifies this or certify that. Privileged identity management is super respected people. So someone who has super knowledge. For example, Amar is the global admin, or he is an expert. For example, I'm an expert, but I'm just giving an example. I'm an expert, and I should have access to, because in any situation, he can only solve the problem and he should have all the access privilege, maybe to the computer department as well, electrical. Then he is a special user or privileged user. Now name itself says privileged. It's someone who has really deserved to have that one. So he can basically have access to everything and read write, not only read write. So you can create those, and that is where the intra ID is so special. You see the roles and roles you can create. External identities. What is external identities or federated communication is, for example, you sometimes you might log into some, even here also, you create to Azure, you log in with Azure with your Google account. So Microsoft is not my own account, or Aunad, Microsoft Aunad is my own account, which is Microsoft, but I'm logging with my different account. But that needs to be trusted. That needs to be trusted that I'm coming from the external identities and log into that account. So basically, what you do need to do is you basically make a federation between your intra ID and the external email ID, and you attach, basically allow that email ID to configure something. First you authenticate and authorize, and then you allow with the permission like read write, and that you can make communication. Incident management like Defender for Cloud and Azure. This is a separate topic on security, which I'll cover later in deeper in upcoming days. But just to short note, Defender for Cloud is there are a number of endpoints, and the endpoints need to be protected. So the Defender Cloud is, and plus you need separate licensing from Microsoft, because if you look at Defender for Cloud, if I search it here, Defender for Cloud, you see Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you need different security postures. I have the subscription, but you need to configure so many postures, different security postures, reliability, compliance, etc. And plus you need to add so many other stuff, like how the alert need to be activated. If you configure DevOps, how the DevOps security will be. If there's API, application programming interface, that means connected to multiple subsystems, like my Azure is connected to outside SAP systems or something. There are a number of APIs. How I can protect that API itself. So there are so many other things you need to configure, so that to protect that endpoint. That is called Defender. It depends from the outside. If you look at Sentinel, it's a SIEM solution. Basically what it does is you have a lot of monitoring and collect the logs and analytics, and it runs a smart algorithm and machine learning to simplify where the log came from, what log it is, etc. Full-fledged information it gives to you. But I'll touch. I'm now talking roughly, but in a couple of days we will walk you through the scenario and you understand more detail. So far I've covered a lot, but I will pause here to take some few questions and then move on basically. Any question on Active Directory or intra ID, for example, or like I forgot to mention the devices which in mobile they call MOD, mobile devices, right? So those external devices also can communicate with their identities. So any question actually before we close the session today, and we'll later connect on the afternoon. Or everything was clear, I told. Sir, what is the role-wise difference in RBAC and Active Directory? Now that's a good question. Active Directory, Azure AD, which is nothing but intra AD. Just to be sure, the AD is now intra AD. Sorry. Rollback. Yeah, that's the one I think I told, but you let me tell you again for a second, and then you get answer. Now, if you look at here, right, what we have done is we have created the groups. We have, what's happening? Yeah, we have, let's say, root tenant. We have group 1, management group 1, management group 2, and then we have subscription 1, subscription, resource group, and resources. Right? So RBAC, which is role-based access control, and there is another called policy, which is maybe location-based policy. So RBAC is nothing but role-based access control. The role-based access, that means, let's say I have the role as an admin, and I want to control my access. Or maybe I'm not an admin, but I'm a reader access. I want to consent. So what you can do, you can apply the RBAC on management group. You can apply the RBAC to the subscription group. You can apply the RBAC to resource group, or you can apply the RBAC to the resource itself. The RBAC rule you can apply on any level from top to bottom. So let's assume that Amar only wants to have, let's assume that there are under resource group, there are hundreds of resources or thousands of resources. If I apply the RBAC on resource group, I can read 100 or thousands of resources. But if Amar is only need to read, because he's a database engineer or a database architect, the database as a resource, he only need to read that database, the 999 resources there. He should not basically read it, any data. So what you can do, you can apply that rule-based access control only to the database. But if that RBAC or read is applied on subscription, he can read even a resource group, 1,000 resources, another resource group, 2,000 resources, he can read it. So you need to understand where the rule need to apply, the RBAC rule. The same way policy. The only difference in the policy is, policy, for example, a location policy means, let's assume that this is my region 1, which is in India, and region 2 is in America. I said, Amar only can create something into region 1, not to region 2. So I apply a policy into that particular region where the subscription is or the management group is. So once you applied that, that policy is not applied to another region, and he will not able to basically create or any resources, because the location only allowed is India, not America. And that policy you can apply only up to the resource group only. policy cannot be applied to the resources. But RBAC you can apply up to the resource level. I think that is the answer of your question, who somebody asked me here. What is the role-wise difference, RBAC? Yeah. And any other question? This one is answered. I think we have answered all the questions. So thank you so much.